Hello there everyone, super excited to bring to you today a blue-white cycling control deck that we're going to be running through a Magic Online Standard League. I think that this is a really strong deck selection for an relatively unknown metagame. We're of course just coming off of a pretty sizable ban actually in Standard. Ramunap Red lost both Ramunap Ruins and the Rampaging Ferocidon, and Temur Energy or 4-color energy, really just any energy deck, lost Rogue Refiner and Attune with Ether. So I would consider the field to be wide open right now, and this is a very strong control deck, I think, that is suited to most matchups and has perhaps the strongest late game inevitability of any deck right now. You'll notice there's a lack of expensive cards also, like exceedingly expensive cards like the Scarab God or any of the new mythics or whatever, so it's a relatively affordable deck as well. I will caution there are a couple of Torrential Gearhulks in the sideboard, but in all honesty they're fairly optional, so there's really not a huge barrier to building a deck like this. In any case, let's get started. We've got Drake Haven, which turns each one of your cycle cards into an additional 2/2 flying Drake token for the low cost of just 1 additional mana. So we're playing a full set of 24 cyclers, spell cyclers, and we're playing a few lands as well. But 6 play sets of 4 different cycling cards that, when you cycle them for 1 additional mana, at instant speed even, you can get a 2/2 Drake token that you can use as a surprise blocker. You can produce them at the end of the turn and start going on the offensive or deal with a planeswalker that you weren't able to counter. So it's just a very versatile threat, and once it's in play, it gives you inevitability, I would say, over the course of the game as you continue to draw cards and thin your deck. Eventually you're just left with nothing but draw spells that cycle into each other, all the while producing more and more Drakes as your army steadily grows and your opponent's hope steadily wanes. So another point worth noting is that the Drake Havens do work in multiples. If you're fortunate enough to have 2, 3, or even all 4 of them in play at once, you can discard a card, either due to your maximum hand size or your opponent using a spell like Duress on you, or cycling one of your many cyclers. You'll actually get to pay however much mana you want to generate that many Drakes, up to 4. And when you can cycle 2 single mana cyclers in a turn and produce 3 or 4 Drakes apiece, that very quickly gets out of control. So let's actually talk about some of the cyclers. They're actually pretty straightforward. Censor, tried and true. Most blue control decks are playing the full 4. You can make your opponent play around it, even if you don't have it in hand, and being able to counter a planeswalker or an X spell like Nissa, the planeswalker, or some other gigantic threat that you can't deal with at the moment. Being able to censor it is a very powerful threat that your opponent needs to respect, and if nothing else, you can always just cycle it to try and find your lands, find your board wipe, or produce some Drakes if you have a Drake Haven in play. So just a tried and true, very effective spell. We also have Countervailing Winds, which is an actual hard counter in most cases. If you're cycling in the early game or using board wipes or draw spells later in the game, just over the course of playing many turns, your graveyard's bound to fill up, and that will make your Countervailing Winds a very strong counter for only 3 mana. You can generally get into the 5 to 10 range, which is essentially a hard counter for anything your opponent could do that you actually are concerned about. And if nothing else, you can always cycle it for just 2 colorless. And then we also have Hieroglyphic Illumination, a weaker draw spell than Glimmer of Genius, but because of the cycle clause, this does definitely win out. 4 mana, instant speed to draw 2 cards. You can cycle it for just 1 if you don't have the time to wait and cast it for the full effect. Most of the times, once you have Drake Haven in play, you're just going to be cycling it regardless, even if you did have the mana, because for 4 mana you could potentially cycle maybe 2 1-mana cyclers like Censor or Hieroglyphic Illumination and produce 2 Drakes while drawing 2 cards, and that's often a better exchange than just drawing 2 cards and no Drakes. Aside from that, we also have the full set of Renewed Faith. This is a pretty nice deal in the aggro matchups, where you can just cycle it to gain 2 life, or more often than not, you might even just cast it for the full value. For the full 3 mana, you gain 6 life. But even with just 2, you gain a little bit of a life buffer while cycling through your deck. We also have, excuse me, Cast Out, which is much like Censor, kind of tried and true. Many control decks are playing the full 4. Instant speed due to flash. You can exile a problematic enchantment or planeswalker or a creature that is giving you lots of trouble and you don't have another answer to it, or that slipped through a counter spell. So Cast Out, just a very versatile, strong card, and a 1-mana cycler, which is, in many cases, we'll hopefully see, much stronger than the 2-mana cyclers, just because of how much easier it is to produce drakes. The dream is generally to deal with whatever threat they might have on turn 2, whether by censoring or cycling a Renewed Faith or something. Turn 3, you can play a Drake Haven, and then on turn 4, you can cycle a Cast Out and a Hieroglyphic Illumination or something, and produce 2 Drakes with which to block or start pressuring them. We're also playing the full 4 Irrigated Farmlands. Just seems like a simple inclusion. 2-mana cycler, dual land, comes into play tapped, but for a land, it's a pretty exceptional value. We also have the nearly full, almost 2 playsets of sweepers. We're playing 7 in total between Settle the Wreckage and Fumigate. I'm actually kind of still testing the proper split here, but I think we definitely want a dearth of a large amount of board sweepers here, just because of how many tribal decks there are likely to be, and aggressive decks. You really just need to survive the early and mid game and then take over with a Drake Haven or 2, and these sweepers help you bridge that gap from the early to the late game. So Settle the Wreckage, 4 mana and instant speed, Wrath to Exile, or Path of God, people often call it, as you get to exile all opponents' attacking creatures, and then they get a bunch of basic lands and on the battlefield tapped. A little bit of a trade-off, but this essentially protects you from almost any combat step. If your opponent doesn't have a way to counter it, generally if they're not playing blue, then you will be able to, at the very minimum, buy yourself an extra turn. It's essentially a very powerful fog, and also people will play around it in most cases, even if you don't have it in hand, just due to the potential threat of a blowout. They might attack with only 1 or 2 of their 3 or 4 creatures to avoid getting settled. And then finally, Fumigate, for those cases where you need to be more proactive. You can just wipe the board yourself. This is good against the hexproof creatures like in Merfolk, or Carnage Tyrant or something out of Dinosaurs, things that you can't deal with a Cast Out, or you can't really block with a Drake token. You have Fumigate to wipe them away and gain some life while you're at it. So right now I'm doing a 3-4 split, Fumigates to Settle the Wreckage. I think that is just fine, but could certainly be amenable to adjusting these slightly. Moving on to round out our control shell, we have a Baffling End, a new addition from Rivals of Ixalan, a 2-mana enchantment that exiles any creature with a converted mana cost 3 or less, including tokens, so it can be strong against most things with the exception of like Glorybringers and Scarab God and Torrential Gearhulks, but there's definitely a lot of targets at 3 or less mana that you need to answer, and if it's something like a Glint Sleeve Siphoner or something that's incrementally gaining your opponent advantage and then just not attacking into your Settle the Wreckage, or you can't tap out for a Fumigate, a Baffling End is a very cheap and efficient way to deal with something like that. It does have the downside, if it leaves the battlefield, they get a 3/3 Trampler, but that's generally not a huge issue just because of how many sweepers we have, and we can easily produce some blockers that handle it anyway. So I think the trade-off is definitely well worth the additional effect. We also have 2 Search for Azcanta. I believe that if you have this on turn 2, you're just generally very favored to win that game because of how easily you're able to filter your draws, kind of guiding all of your land drops or digging for that critical board sweeper or whatever it is you're looking for. And then eventually it transforms into a legendary land for 3 mana. We get to look at the top 4 cards and reveal a non-creature, non-land, so almost definitely going to reveal a cycler, which is the key part. Once you have your Drake Havens in play, you need more cyclers, and this is one way to find them. So also helps to ramp you up a little bit at some times. This deck can operate with as little as like 4, maybe 5 mana, but it's always nice to have more just so you can chain cycler into cycler. We also have an Abandoned Sarcophagus, which in addition to Drake Haven helps solidify your hold on the late game. You can cast non-land cards that have cycling from the graveyard, but you can't just endlessly loop them, because if you cast a card with cycling from anywhere, then and it was not cycled, you must exile it instead. So you can't use your censors repeatedly. Once you cast them from the graveyard, they're exiled, and once you cast them from your hand, if you have a sarcophagus in play, they're exiled. So generally you want to get as much value, just wringing as much out of your cyclers as you can, cycle a cast out, get a Drake, and then cast the cast out from the grave to exile something, all for the low price of like 6 mana or whatever. A trivial thing once you're in the late game. So this just enables you to use your spells twice, essentially. And then finally we have a Pull from Tomorrow, which does actually discard a card. It's just 2 mana, instant speed, X. In addition to the 2 mana, you get to draw that many cards. Generally, you are probably just going to want to draw the full amount, but if you were so inclined, you could, for 1 less card, you could produce a 2/2 Drake, or however many Drake Havens you have out, produce that many, and use them as blockers, or just build up your army. And then the following turn, you're likely over your maximum hand size, so you can just discard a bunch of cards that way and produce yet more Drakes. Moving on to our land here, we're playing a total of 24, just a bunch of basics and Glacial Fortresses, which almost always come to play untapped because we have so many basics, and farmlands count as well. 2 things of note are the Field of Ruin, which we can use to destroy our opponent's flipped Search for Azcanta or any of the other enchantment based lands that can pose a threat to us. And we also have a Shefet Dunes, which we can use as like either a surprise one-time use, make all of your Drakes, turn them from a 2/2 into a 3/3. You can often surprise your opponent to kill their planeswalkers, or just reduce them to 0. If they were planning around you, maybe having just 1 less blocker or attacker than necessary, this can get you there when you need it in a pinch. Moving on to the sideboard, we have quite a few cards for the aggro decks. We've got 2 Sunscourge Champions, 2 Baffling Ends, and 2 Authority of the Consuls. The Sunscourge Champion is pretty solid, 3 mana for a 2/3. When it enters, you immediately gain 2 life. Nice little buffer, much like the, forgetting its name now, the Renewed Faith. And for 4 mana, if it's in the grave, you can eternalize it and actually discard a card in the process. So if you have a Drake Haven out for 5 mana, you get a 4/4 that gains you 4 life. Discard like a land or something, and you also get a Drake as well, which can be a pretty big roadblock actually to your opponent trying to beat you down with either little pirates or merfolk or whatever they've assembled. We also have Authority of the Consuls, which I like a lot. I've reduced the number from, I was playing 3 in earlier iterations of the deck, but I'm down to 2. I think it's still very, very good against things like dinosaurs with Otepec Huntmaster, trying to give things haste. You can slow them down a turn, and that's often enough to buy time for like a Fumigate or something that those decks are very weak to. It's also good against the aggressive decks that actually depend on haste. There's like pirates and red-white hasty threats running around that you can delay them a turn, and all the while gaining life for every creature that they play. Also, this does work in multiples too, so it's very funny when they're trying to play like a 1/1 with haste to attack you, and you're gaining 2 life by them doing so. A bunch of counter spells, which we'll get to in a second. We have a Sorcerous Spyglass, just a simple artifact. You get to look at your opponent's hand, choose a card, and then activated abilities of that card can't be activated unless it's mana related. So you can name like your opponent's flipped Search for Azcanta, the Sunken Ruin, or whichever it's called, the Sunken Ruin, being forewarned that, of course, this works on your own cards as well, so just be careful. If they have it and you don't, though, you're not really losing anything, but generally this is for things like Chandra, the Torch of Defiance, and Planeswalkers that we can't deal with, and it's just nice being able to look at your opponent's hand also and see which cyclers you can afford to part with, which others you might need to hang on to. We've got Negates and Jace's Defeat. I'm not really sure what the proper mix of these two is, but I know we want a lot of them. Jace's Defeat seems like it's just as good as Negate these days. Generally anything that I want to negate, I find that it's generally blue, so a Jace's Defeat would work in the pinch, with the exception of like Chandra or something like Approach of the Second Sun. But Jace's Defeat also has the added benefit of hitting pretty much everything in the Merfolk deck, as well as the Scarab God and some other blue creatures that you might be worried about. Not Rogue Refiner anymore, though. That's permanently been defeated, thankfully. We've got Forsake the Worldly, which is a nice answer to your opponent's either cast outs or Ixalan's bindings, and you can also just cycle in a pinch if need be. We have Ixalan's binding of our own, generally bringing in against any deck with planeswalkers or cast out. It's nice if you can actually tag their cast out, meaning that they cannot answer yours anymore because it's uncastable. And then finally 2 Torrential Gearhulks, which are as good as ever. These are pretty flexible though. They are strong, but they're certainly not necessary, not absolutely required. But it's very nice being able to rebuy a cycled Hieroglyphic Illumination or Countervailing Winds or something, or a Settle the Wreckage if you need a Wrath effect. So, much like the Sarcophagus, it lets you recast your spells once you've already cycled them once or something, and gives you a 5/6 body with which to block or attack right after. So very, very strong card, but you could certainly replace this with something fun, like maybe Dovin Bond, more counter spells, or more aggro hosers, like Sunscourge Champions and Authority of the Consuls, or Regal Caracols. There's lots of choices. So all in all, I think it's a very versatile deck with a strong matchup against most other these tribal decks running around. And I'm excited to give it a try. So thanks for watching with me so far. Let's get to the matches. Hello there everyone, here we are in match 1, game 1 on the draw with a relatively interesting hand actually. We've got a Drakehaven and an Abandoned Sarcophagus, so the late game is pretty much assured if we can just get there. We have a number of cyclers, only one of which we can actually use at the moment to get to the critical 3 mana. Well, purpose of these videos is to sort of test the limits and see what we can and cannot keep. I'm going to go ahead and try this. We're on the draw, so we get 2 draw steps and a cast out cycle to try and find any land. Then we can start cycling Renewed Faith and Countervailing Winds, but of course we want to preserve as many of these cyclers as we can to make use of with the Drakehaven. Let's see if we can luck out and get there though. We're up against maybe a Merfolk deck or the remnants of some sort of Temur energy without Attune with Ether or Rogue Refiner. Looks more like Merfolk though, probably like a Deep-Root Elite. Oh, yep, there you go. So, up against Merfolk, in game 1 I would estimate that we are advantaged, just because of the sheer number of sweepers that we have, and the ability of Drakehaven to stall almost indefinitely. I'm going to go ahead and play the Farmland because you need a blue source anyway, and we lucked out knowing that we have a Plains. Our Drakehaven on turn 3 should be pretty secure at the moment. But I would expect this matchup gets a lot more difficult in sideboarded games once they have access to Spell Pierces, Negates, and maybe even like Naturalize. I would not be surprised to see cards like that show up. But we'll see. We've got the important cards in the matchup, Drakehaven and Fumigate. So we'll see what happens here. If all they do is like, okay, well that was probably one of the better things they could do. The Pioneer creates a little friend, so that's 2 Merfolk entering. Deep-Root Elite could be a 3/3 at this point, a little bit bigger. And if they follow this up next turn with like a Merfolk Lord or 2, then things are going to get really complicated. We'll need probably like a Settle the Wreckage and a land off the top to survive that. Almost certainly going to cast the Drakehaven here though. And they're actually diversifying a little bit. I think that might end up working out for us somewhat. They're adding the counter to the hexproof guy instead of over here. Alright, and that was good finding a 1-mana cycler. If we're lucky, we can find like a 1-mana cycler into a land. We may be able to create 2 Drakes in 1 turn shortly, on turn 4 or 5. Still need to hit lands though. We're trying to just survive till we can Fumigate, and that generally signifies the end of the game, I would think. Even if they can like use Unsummon or something to pull back a couple of key Merfolk like the Elite or a Lord or Kumena, it should be alright. Jade Bear is gonna pump up Deep-Root Elite and something else maybe. Possibly the hexproof Merfolk token here. Looks like that's what's happening. So unless there's a Lord here, we might be okay. We're going to be taking a bit of damage, but we can always like cycle or even cast Renewed Faith for a bit of a life surge. I'd be really surprised if they don't have a second Merfolk here. I'm just kind of hoping it's not a Lord, because that's an extra, what, like 4 damage right now. We're already taking 7, so that pretty much shortens the clock to just 1 more turn. This looks like it could be a Lord though, or Silvergill Adept. Alright, so Branchwalker, I think that's the Explorer. Yep. This is going to be tough. Silvergill Adept going to replace itself while growing the Merfolk token, the hexproof one here. But if we can just find an untapped land, we can, even just the threat of a Settle the Wreckage is often enough to deter our opponent into attacking with less, and that's when we take advantage using our cheaper cyclers. Alright, that was good. That was a great draw. So we're effectively at 12 if we need to be, using the Renewed Faith, and then I could always make a token and cycle the Censor just for the 1 mana, no additional Drake. We're just looking for an untapped land if we survive this turn, and that should put the brakes on our opponent. They have 5, at least 4, if not 5 spells in hand, as they did not play a land last turn or this turn yet. So as long as none of those are Spell Pierces or Negates, we might have a shot here. If it's like a Kumena, that could be unfortunate, because they could immediately draw a card while attacking with less. I'm expecting they would attack with less than their full board here, maybe fearing a Settle the Wreckage, which is just the strength of that card. Alright, they're actually leaving behind an Elite, perhaps. 2, 4, 6, that is lethal. So I think I want to cycle the Renewed Faith, just to put us out of lethal range. And we get a chump blocker maybe for the Merfolk here, if they allow us to block. Very possible that they just immediately disperse, or whatever, our Drake token here, and unsummon maybe. So we want to gain the 2 life. We will always yield 2 Drake activations. See what we draw. It's an untapped land, that would be very welcome. Our opponent right here might use their 1 blue source to unsummon the Drake token. That would be perfectly fine. There they are. Alright, so we're going to survive this turn thanks to the cycling the Renewed Faith. And we've got 2 chances to draw an untapped land off the cycle alone, and then a 3rd chance on our draw step. And now our opponent has no open blue mana, so they can't even represent a Spell Pierce or a Negate. We're going to desperately dig for that untapped land and try to wrath the board, and probably win from that point if we succeed. There's the land. Alright. That was very welcome. So, let's Fumigate, gain a bunch of life, kill all of our opponent's creatures, unless they're main decking that hexproof indestructible instant for all their permanents. Alright, so we just wiped away all their hard work from the first 5 turns, and now they only have 3 mana to rebuild. They can do a decent job of that with the Branchwalker and a Speaker here. Branchwalker maybe finding them a land. Guess we'll find out in a moment here. Alright, Silvergill Adept. They might keep that on top. If they're out of Merfolk in hand, then they can't actually cast this, which is interesting. They did choose to leave it on top. But that's okay, because now we can create 2 Drakes in 1 turn. We can block both of these. And we also have a Countervailing Winds if we really needed to counter something. All the while representing a Settle the Wreckage. So I think we're on the cusp of turning the corner here. If we can land the Sarcophagus or the 2nd Drake Haven, then things get out of hand for our opponent very, very quickly. It's nice having the Settle in hand, just as a bit of insurance. Alright, so they have a Lord, which is going to pump these guys out of reach of our Drake tokens, and presumably they just drew the Adept. Interesting they didn't lead with the Adept. They might not be able to cast anything now. So here, I think I do want to counter this, just because it's going to grow both the Branchwalker and the Speaker higher than 2 toughness, which is not good for us. So if this resolves and our opponent has no other spells this turn except maybe a 1-drop, we get to trade a Censor for one of these two while drawing a card. If we can find like an untapped land, then we could play the Drakehaven and even use the Countervailing Winds to create a Drake. So we'll see what happens here. If their last card is another unsummon, that could be scary. We'll see what happens here. Not dead if that's the case. Alright, another cheap cycler, that's good. Oops. Let's block the 3/2. Hopefully kill our opponent's Explorer here, dropping to 5. We know they have a Silvergill Adept, which they can't even cast this turn, and an unknown rest of their hand. We did find that. Alright, so that's 3 and 2. Yep. So now we get to play the Drakehaven and create 2 Drakes with every single mana cycler. Once we untap, we can slam Abandoned Sarcophagus, and our Cast Out, Renewed Faith, Countervailing Winds all become active again. So I think that will be the end of our opponent, with any luck. But just imagine the terror of a Spell Pierce or a Negate looming in our opponent's hand this entire time. We would have been dead long ago, so things get a lot dicier later. Is this an Kamena? Okay. So I'm very tempted to censor that, but without a board, really, they can't do much with him. So I think that's fine. We'll just surprise their speaker here if they attack into us, and they do. Might as well just tap these now. Make a Drake. Make a Drake. And draw a card even. Alright. Just block to kill that. And now we even have a residual Drake left over. We can start getting on the aggressive if we so desire. Kind of want to play the Sarcophagus just to have access to like a Renewed Faith in a pinch, but I don't think that's necessary. With 6 mana, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Alright, if we Illumination into an untapped land, we could then Countervailing Winds as well. But I'm not too concerned with that. I might just cycle the Illumination and use Countervailing Winds. Get all of our cyclers into the grave before next turn, playing the Sarcophagus. And we only need to cycle 1 time to produce enough Drakes to stop Kamena. All in all, I would say this is a pretty standard game 1. Things look pretty bad, especially when we're on the draw, as we were, if they have an aggressive start, which they did. But fortunately, a timely Fumigate and Drakehavens are able to bail us out pretty much. Alright, if this is probably just like a Silvergill Adept, that's good for our opponent. They're rebuilding adequately, but we're like just drawing another Fumigate away from closing the game, I think. They revealed another Kumena, so that's good to know about. They might not be all that attached to this one. If they draw like a Lord off of that Adept, that could be kind of tricky, but I think we'll be fine. And if our opponent does nothing, then we can just pull from tomorrow for a whole bunch of cards. Our opponent is using their Merfolk to make Kumena unblockable, of course. We could Settle the Wreckage here. They have another Kumena, but they can't play it this turn. I might as well just go ahead and do this now. We'll get rid of Kumena and probably just make a single Drake, and then we can Countervailing Winds the follow-up Kumena. I'd rather not risk our life total any more than necessary, and at this point our opponent getting an extra land isn't really helping them all that much. I do want to use my mana effectively and just churn through our deck, even though we're missing out on a Drake here. I think that's fine. We can use the Countervailing Winds and maybe draw the Cycler off of our next 2 draws, like that one. Right, so the same plan as before. We get 2 Drakes and counter our opponent's 3-drop maybe. I've since played the Adept, so we know about Kumena number 2. If they want to lead things off with that, that is a-okay. And we even have another Settle the Wreckage, just for a bit more security. And their opponent's in a really tricky position. There's not much they can do. They pretty much have to be attacking, but it's just so easy for us to pull ahead of them now. Every cycler nets us 2 blockers, which we can just easily trade with their 1 attacker. And a cast out too, so if we wanted to, we could just mass produce tokens here. Our Countervailing Winds, pretty much a hard counter at this point. If this is, okay, Pioneer, that's a little obnoxious just because of the hexproof and all that. So, and we're not in any real rush to just kill them. If we could kill them with 5 Drakes out, like if we had a Shefet Dunes in hand, I might consider just letting this resolve, casting out, and going for the kill next turn. But I'd rather they don't get to create 3 Merfolk here. They could play the Pioneer to get 2, and then play Kumena that we know about, and suddenly they're able to draw cards, and he can become unblockable, and just gets to be messy really quickly. So he's back. We'll only have 2 cards in hand in just a moment here. So this is actually interesting. They can use the Hashep Oasis to make this guy 5 power, and if they have another Merfolk that they could play, he'd then be unblockable. But we have the cast out for that. Alternatively, they could also just play the Abandoned Sarcophagus, and that makes all these things active, namely like Renewed Faith and all that. And of course we always would have Settle the Wreckage at the ready. I'm just going to play the Sarcophagus, and we can do pretty much anything now. We can hard counter something, we can settle, we can cast out a single target, or we can just convert this into 2 blockers if they don't activate the Oasis pre-combat, which they must, due to it being only available as a sorcery. I think we can just let our opponent determine our course of action here. Okay, 4-drop Merfolk. Tempest Caller, so they just tap all of our creatures, and then this guy can become unblockable. Don't really care about that though. Not enough to counter it with the Countervailing Winds or something. So, I mean, our opponent can attack us, but we're just going to produce 2 Drakes, so even if they have an unsummon, we still will have 4, and that's sufficient. So, I can't think of any way they can just produce 3 extra power here. We'll take the hit, create 2 Drakes, and that should be the end of this game. I didn't realize how much time our opponent has utilized here. Perhaps putting some stops where they are not necessary, but that's alright. So our opponent sees the end, and we move on to game 2, where things get a lot more tricky. They've got like dispersal effects, so in addition to the unsummon to save their guys from an Ixalan's Binding or a cast out, they're probably bringing in naturalizes and perhaps, I forget the name of it now, like a Hornswaggle or something, where they're able to bring their creatures back, or even just disperse our enchantments, getting their creature back to re-trigger all their counters being dispersed, and explore triggers and things like that. So I'm kind of reluctant to bring in things like Binding and leave in all the cast outs. Baffling End kind of suffers from the same issue, but it is very inexpensive. It only costs a measly 2 mana. So I'm considering bringing in the Baffling Ends. Jace's Defeat counters pretty much everything of consequence in their deck, with the exception of like a couple of the Explorer, Merfolk, or Kumena Speakers, or anything like that, which I wouldn't really care to counter anyway. I do like Sunscourge Champions for the life gain, but as we saw, a 2/3 does not do a good job of blocking. Their creatures get out of hand very, very quickly, so they might not be the most exciting. Spyglass does shut down Kumena, the Tyrant, as well as this this enchantment, the blue-green enchantment that flips into a legendary land, puts counters on creatures before combat, and once they're sufficiently sized, transforms into a land that can double their power and give them flying till end of turn, things like that. Kind of make me want to bring in the Spyglass. So first of all, what do we take out exactly? Pull from Tomorrow seems a little clunky, as is the Sarcophagus. The Countervailing Winds are quite slow. I'd like to replace those two. I'm considering either the Gearhulks, the Sunscourge Champions, or maybe the Negates. There's not much to negate aside from our opponent's counterspells, which is not a very advantageous position to be in. I think I'm going to give the Sunscourge Champions a try, taking out the Countervailing Winds, and maybe on the play I can bring in the Gearhulks instead. But here, I'm going to go ahead and give this a try. And let's hope for the best. Our opponent likely bringing in a half dozen counter spells and other nasty effects. Well, this hand basically has it all, except for lands, once again. We had a similar decision last time. If we can draw a land naturally and play Search for Azcanta, that can likely guide us to the Settle the Wreckages, and we also have Jace defeats, which are quite strong, so we've got 2 chances to draw an untapped land. Even if it is a tap land, it's not the biggest issue. We only have 23 hits, though. I think we can do better than that. As sad as it is, I hate mulliganing the chance for a turn 2 Search for Azcanta, but I think we just get run over if we keep anything less. I'm going to keep the Sunscourge Champion. We're just trying to buy time until we can maybe Fumigate here, and hope to get a grip here against our opponent, a foothold. Sunscourge Champion might help against the early drops, the 2/2s and the 1/1s. Okay. Start things off. Probably going to cycle Renewed Faith on turn 2. We're looking for Settle the Wreckage, more land, Drake Haven, and some cheap counter magic perhaps, more Fumigates. Our opponent does not have access to blue yet, and they don't even have an island for the Commander Speaker, but they probably have a like a Silvergill Adept here or something, so this guy will be hitting us for 2 anyway. Yep, revealing a Branchwalker. So if they really must dig for lands, they have that. Take our 2. We're effectively still at 20 because of the Renewed Faith, and Jace's defeat is interesting. If they try and cast like a Tyrant of Erazka or something, or Kamena, I would definitely counter that. If they try and cast another Silvergill Adept, I would probably also consider that. But we'll see what they do. If they go for the Branchwalker, Jace's defeat will not be of use, and we'll just cycle the Renewed Faith in that case. Depending on how difficult this matchup is, though, I would definitely consider replacing some of these negates with Jace's defeat, as it seems like most of the time anything you're negating is likely to be a blue spell anyway. Of course, not always, like things like Chandra, and I don't know, maybe a removal spell at some point. But Jace's defeat hitting things like Torrential Gearhulk and the Scarab God and all these merfolk definitely seems to be worth consideration. So they're leaving the Adept on top, and they do have the green, so they still have no actual blue mana, but they do have a bunch of green 2/2s that we can't counter. So things are going to be interesting here. We're definitely playing the Sunscourge Champion. Could also Baffling End, but that's probably not necessary here. This will help recover our life total, and unless they have a way, like a Lord would be a disaster here, because we can only block the Adept and we still lose our Scourge Champion then. If they don't have a way of pumping anything or bouncing our guy, they can really only attack with the Branchwalker, unless they're happy to just throw away a Merfolk for an extra 4 damage. We'll see what happens, though. Next turn, we can likely Baffling End something and either cycle the Illumination if we're desperately looking for land, or if we find one, we can hold up a Jace defeat. That would be ideal. See what our opponent has to say about that. They are considering. So, we know about the Adept in hand. We'll see if they have like a post-combat play or something. Well, here, I guess I want to leave the Adept behind and block one of the 2/2s while I can before it gets pumped out of reach. I could also trade with the Branchwalker. If I knew we had another land, I might consider doing that to eternalize the champion next turn, but that seems unnecessary. If they play Kumena now, I'd be very happy with that, just Baffling End him. I don't imagine it'll be that easy though. This is good if our opponent continues to tap out turn after turn, because then if we keep hitting our lands, Fumigate will devastate them. This looks like another Adept, revealing another Branchwalker, so hopefully no land this turn. If they go land Branchwalker, that could be real bad, because they'll have a huge army growing here. They did not have it. Alright, I'm going to look for land, because we're really trying to get to fumigating. I'm actually going to risk it here. We didn't find it. Alright, that's unfortunate. Right, we kept a 3-lander in our the next 7 draws. We have missed on all of them, it seems. It's unfortunate. I was hoping to hit an untapped land there so we could Baffling End or Jace's defeat something here, but yeah. If our opponent still has no natural blue source like an island or a botanical sanctum, we can Settle the Wreckage next turn if we find an untapped land. But that was really unfortunate missing there, and also unlikely, I think. We still have, what, 21 sources? I feel like we should have found one by now, but what can we do? Okay. Growing the Adept. Attacking with everybody. So we could take 8 down to 3, and we're basically dead then. Alternatively, I can block one of the heavy hitters, and then try to eternalize the champion. We're really just looking for land, so that we can settle, or maybe eternalize the champion. That seems unlikely as well. I think we're just going to take the free kill here, and then hope to top deck a land, and our opponent misses on blue mana. Because once again, if we had mana to Fumigate this upcoming turn, there's really nothing that our opponent could do. They'd be out of cards almost, versus multiple Drake Havens and whatnot. Okay, if they keep Kumena on top, that means no blue source still. Alright, alright. So things are kind of looking up after that. I'm just going to wait and threaten them with a Settle the Wreckage here, and hope to draw another untapped land next turn for Fumigating. Opponent still has no negates here. If they attack with everything, then they get a bunch of lands, of course, which is obnoxious, but we'll see. So we can only block one of those, and we would definitely die after. So let's try this. And then if they want to replay Kumena, they can immediately draw a card, but that gives us an opportunity to maybe find a land, and we can Fumigate them away. If nothing else, we can Baffling End Kumena and have a Jace's defeat ready. And then that way they have no 3-power Merfolk that can punch through our Sunscourge Champion and kill us with the other. Alright, so we want them to play Kumena, and then we want to draw an untapped land, because our opponent has all the islands they need now to counter us. Alright, do we find the land? We did not, but finding, or having the Baffling End for Kumena might be enough here, and having a Jace's defeat for a removal spell of some kind. And if our opponent does have counter spells, they're trying to resolve something big this turn, we can then get into a counter war with them using Jace's defeat, and if they tap out, that gives us another chance to draw into Fumigate mana. If they want to play like the Tempest Caller or whatever, the tap down guy, we are forced to counter that, unfortunately, but we'll see. Did we side out the Renewed Faiths? No, we did not. So that would have been nice to represent here as well. We could be at 5 life and draw a card. Our opponent wouldn't be able to alpha swing then. This is no longer revealed. So unfortunately, we kept a 6-card hand, meaning that our next 9 draws only held 1 basic in them, 1 land period. But fortunately, it was an untapped land. I think it was the plains as well, which we needed to cast Settle the Wreckage. Nothing pre-combat, and no attacks. Really wish we had a cycler now. Whatever they do, if it's a blue card, we're going to Jace's defeat it, just to try and expend their mana and keep their board light. Definitely countering that. Oh, they also... Did they forget to use Kumena last turn to draw a card? I think they may have. Interesting. Okay, no counter magic. That's also interesting. We've answered 2 Kumenas, so now it's mostly just Little Merfolk, but unfortunately we're out of counter spells and we're very hamstrung on mana. But our opponent only has 6 minutes to kill us and win the next game, so I guess that's a consideration. I would of course much prefer a fast-paced game with interesting plays from both sides. Alright, so if that's a Spell Pierce there... Is that a Spell Pierce? Oh, we found a land, but not the one we need. I think I still play it, however, and try and play Search. If that's a Spell Pierce, then we're likely dead anyway. There's no chance of this Fumigate resolving, but at the very least, we're not dead yet. I guess we are dead if they use the Hashep Oasis on either of these 1/1s. We'll be forced to block that, and then we'll take 3 damage exactly. But our opponent doesn't know what else is in our hand, and they're not doing that either. And they're not bouncing us before blocks. Do they just have like a Blossoming Defense for lethal? We'll block the Silvergill Adept. And this is where we hope they just play out their last 2 creatures, Merfolk or something, and we get to Fumigate them. At that point, we're both kind of top-decking, but we have the advantage of a search for Azcanta, and we have the 2 Drake Havens in hand, which will eventually be useful. Alright, so they only have 1 card left. Very surprised they didn't cast this pre-combat for the counters. So we may end up winning this game, but through ill-gotten means. I think we should be dead by now. They just find 2 lands. Okay. So they've got 2 lands and an unknown card. If that unknown card has counter-target spell written on it, we lose. Baffling End, we don't need that currently. 1 mana away from being able to pay 4 Spell Pierce, but we don't really have a choice here. Hope it resolves. And it does. Alright, so what is our opponent... What do they have exactly? Could it be a Naturalize for a Baffling End or something? Yeah, yep, it was. Okay, but we gained the life, so... Our opponent has 2 land... Oh, and then we're... Oh, that's disappointing. We die to the Oasis now. Well, that is the cost of playing a card like Baffling End. If they see it, which I assume they do know what this card does, then we die narrowly. That's unfortunate. It came very, very close there. But in the end, our opponent prevails. So, on to Game 3. On the play, our opponent only has 4 minutes to kill us, so there is some argument to play for a draw, almost, just to kind of stall the game out, every defensive measure that we have, and win that way, but I'd much rather actually win by the traditional way, inflicting damage to our opponent. So, question is, knowing about Naturalize, what would we consider bringing in? Honestly, things like Ixalan's Binding and Gearhulks are kind of a liability. They brought in the Naturalizes for Drake Havens and Castouts already. I guess Search for Azcanta and Baffling End. I still like the Baffling Ends, even with the downside of it occasionally giving them a 3/3. I think it's still a necessary evil to deal with the early aggression. Alright. This is an interesting hand that I will keep. Plenty of cyclers. Fortunately, I'm probably going to have to actually play out the farmland here, as we need that white source. We can censor their turn 2 Merfolk if it's like a Lord, or if it's something else, we can Jace's Defeat maybe. But we have the Sunscourge Champion once again. If we get to untap with the Sunscourge in play, chances are good it'll be hard for them to break through it if we protect it with counter magic. This is just a Kamena Speaker, not even that, okay. So now we get to Censor, and they won't even have a creature in play until turn 3. And if that's like a Kumena, we drew the cast out to deal with it. I also like having a Field of Ruin to blow up this Oasis at some point, if need be. I'll definitely censor that. Don't want them to find a land and sift through their deck. Don't want them to have a 3-2 in play, potentially. So I'd rather just answer it now. Oopsies. I guess we need some white mana to cast this, don't we? So, we've got a decent blocker, and if they want to play out Merfolk that eventually will grow, we can counter the things that make them grow with Jace's Defeat. We can maybe draw some cards using Illumination cast out, and our opponent only has 3 minutes to deal 22 damage to us. Revealing a Mistbinder. And no third land? Oh, there they go. Okay. Thought it odd if they kept a 7-card hand with no third land in it and no one drop. So they did in fact have the third land though, but that's okay. We have an active Settle the Wreckage next turn, and the way things are going, we might actually be able to protect it with a Jace's Defeat, but we'll see. If they try and play that Lord this turn, it might be worth just defeating that. Looks like that's what they're going to do. So I will fight against that. And if they counter it, no big deal. I'll still trade the Sunscourge Champion for the Adept, I think. And then maybe eternalize it, or just draw some cards. We could also cycle this cast out. But 1 negate down, that's good. I'm going to go ahead and block here. Finding a land. We could eternalize. I think eternalize creature is going to be more useful than the Settle the Wreckage. Just the odds of them countering it. I mean, now they have to break through a 4/4. And this way we get to hang on to our cast out, which can be very handy, and we also have some card draw with the Illumination if need be. So I think our opponent's just going to run out of time. Unfortunately, I'd be interested in seeing how the rest of this game would play out. I can't imagine that they can kill us from this point, though, based on their pace of play. That's the way it goes, I suppose. I don't even know how their Merfolk Mistbinder can get through. They'd have to have all those 1-mana Merfolk that add counters and other lords to even be able to trade with us, which I would probably do. But we'll see if they have time to select the creature type for this unclaimed territory. Or if it looks like they have given up the ghost, perhaps. Oh, there we go. Our opponent lost connection to the game. So, unfortunately, there is next to no chance that our opponent can reconnect and kill us in time. So we'll be moving on to match 2 in just a moment. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay tuned. Hello again, everyone. Here we are in match 2 on the draw once again. As predicted, our opponent suffering from a frayed connection, perhaps, to the internet. They were unable to return and kill us in the allotted time. So, our opponent is now mulliganing to 5. It was unfortunate. They do leave a card on top. We'll see what they find exactly, but generally against an opponent that keeps a very small hand, cards like Censor increase in value. I'm still going to hang on to these cyclers for a bit, these farmlands. They're currently the only source of white mana that doesn't damage us. But that's okay, it's not a huge issue. And looks like it might be against the mirror match, or just a blue-white approach of the second sun take on control here. So it'll be interesting to see which flavor exactly they are. Here I will actually cycle one of these farmlands, and I'll play the other next turn, as I do want to actually have access to multiple colors of mana at some point. And even still, just keeping up Censor. Unfortunately, if our opponent has a oh, okay, that's fine. I'm actually considering using the cycle, the Renewed Faith, but then I can't hold up Censor, so no big deal. I will just take it plains here. Our opponent not wanting to take any chances with the Shefet Dunes. I'm kind of happy with that. Now if we resolve a search for Azcanta and transform it, there's less reason to worry about it being destroyed. Hopefully our opponent does not have a Drakehaven here that we can't counter. I'm just going to cycle Renewed Faith. This opens the door for them to, like, Glimmer of Genius or something, but we're looking for land still. This is kind of unfortunate. We haven't really drawn anything of consequence. No, besides this Countervailing Winds. That's a good draw. Ooh. Looks like they missed their chance to Glimmer when our shields were down. But this is almost definitely blue-white control, as if they were in the mirror match, I doubt they'd be playing Glimmers here and Gideon the Trial. So this is blue-white control. This is fine. It's going to come down to whoever has more counterspells, essentially. I'm not really concerned with Gideon because he can't really kill us with Settle the Wreckage, and we can just cast him out when the time comes. I'm going to probably try to... actually, I do like having cast outs at the ready. I'm going to actually cycle the Censor here. I'm still looking for land. There we go. I'm not really worried about Gideon. He takes a while to kill us. We can wait until we're ready to Settle the Wreckage here. And our opponent has to resolve an approach of the second sun through all of our counters. We can slowly but surely kill them with just a single Drakehaven, maybe two. But we do need to protect those. Our opponent has 6 mana, so they could very easily counter us here. I'm still going to go for the Wreckage, I think. Get them to tap out, then if that is the case, they generally aren't casting much else of consequence this turn. It's not like we're in danger of them winning with their second approach. So yeah, we're getting a Disallow out of their hand for a Settle the Wreckage. I'd say that is a worthy trade. Here, going to use the Illumination, actually the Censor. Illumination might be better off drawing us 2. Right. My opponent's down to a measly card in hand. I do want to hit land drops, so I'm going to cycle these cast outs. Search for Azcanta is also okay. I'd like to hit our land and then cast that next turn, perhaps. There we go. End of the turn, if I don't need to use this Countervailing Winds or cast out for some reason, I'll probably draw some cards off Illumination, because once we land the Sarcophagus, it's just fine. Our opponent has basically no choice but to cast out the Sarcophagus to have any chance of winning. Otherwise, all of these cast outs and things like that come active. So I'm saving this cast out until we're ready to, I think, deal with Gideon. Yeah, let's just cast this. Our opponent does get to resolve a draw spell here if they choose it. And they don't. Alright, find the land. We'll play Search. And I think now, one more turn, we'll be ready to answer this Gideon. Ooh, another Disallow. I think that's actually worth countering. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I'm going to go ahead and counter that. If we can land and transform Search for Azcanta, like, we're not really in danger of them resolving anything critical here. Unless they cast out the Search. We'll have a semi-permanent, since they've already used a Field of Ruin, way to, excuse me, to draw cards indefinitely, and that's going to make it very tough for our opponent to keep up with us. But we do have to answer this Gideon at some point. We still have a few turns. But our opponent doesn't really have an active game plan aside from just Gideon killing us. So once we answer that, we should be in good shape. Just going to cycle to dig for Countervailing Winds or something. And more land is also good, of course. Let's see what we find. Glacial Fortress we can do without, and we will transform. Countervailing Winds. Alright. So here we would have, let's say we hold up 3 mana for the winds. We've got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we could play the Sarcophagus and have access to Countervailing Winds. Our opponent hits us down to like 6. If they don't do anything, we could still use the Cast Out, but unfortunately won't be able to use Azcanta. They only have 2, maybe 3 cards in hand. I don't think Countervailing Winds from the hand will be necessary. I'm going to go ahead and cast the Sarcophagus. And so now we can threaten them with multiple counter spells, and we have the Cast Out ready to go. We can even just draw, or gain 3 life, excuse me, pay 3 mana to gain 6 life, and that sets Gideon back quite a number of turns. So I think we are in very good shape here. Really, we just need to protect ourselves from our opponent blowing up our Sarcophagus somehow. Here, I'm going to go ahead and expose ourselves just a little bit. I'm going to try and cast out Gideon from the grave, so if they do immediately answer our Sarcophagus, that's fine. And I'm actually going to cycle the winds as well, because once it's in the grave, it's just as usable. And yeah. We have an active Azcanta with multiple counter spells in the graveyard. Our opponent doesn't see any way to win through that, so that's the game. They put up a good fight for being stuck on, or having to mulligan to 5, but yeah. So, Gideon's Approach of the Second Sun, and presumably things like Regal Caracol coming in out of the sideboard. We definitely want counter magic, even though these Jace defeats don't really do much against them, except for hitting other counters and draws. Their threats are relatively resilient, all being white. I do kind of like Ixalan's Binding. I love Gearhulks. I kind of like the Sunscourge Champions. They can, in pairs, they can pressure Gideon, and they can do a decent job of blocking the cat tokens. And I also like Sorcerous Spyglass is just an answer to our opponent's Field of Ruin or Azcanta. The downside, those also hitting our own. But also Gideon, maybe even like Dovinbon if they're playing him. So I think we can shed some Fumigates. I'll keep 1 just in case of a Regal Caracol getting out of hand. Take out the Settles though. And then from here we can probably take out a Baffling End for maybe a Spyglass. And 2 Renewed Faiths for 2 Sunscourge Champions. I would like this Ixalan's Binding, but it's kind of tricky just because of cast outs and whatnot. But if we name a cast out, if we hit a cast out with Binding, then they can't use them. They just have to cycle them. That actually does sound pretty good. And I actually like that better than Spyglass. Anything that we do name with the Spyglass, except for Gideon, is likely to hurt us at some point as well. So I'll take the chances without it. And hope our opponent doesn't have a turn 2 Azcanta, turn 3 Gideon start, or something like that. Ooh. Do we get the turn 2 search for Azcanta? I think it's possible. Definitely keeping this. We'll see what our opponent's got. We get to go turn 2 search, and then protect it with like a Jace's Defeat, or if they try and cast it out, we can censor them on turn 4. We've got Jace's Defeat at some point will likely just be used in a counter exchange. Nothing. Alright, I don't really want to run these Azcanta into a counter spell, and then them playing Gideon, so I'm just going to hold up the Censor for Gideon. Oh, they don't even have double white for him. That's alright. I think we will hold off on search for now. Okay, finding Fumigate, not the best, but it's nice just knowing if they do tap out like on turn 5 for a Caracol, we can answer it. Okay. Yeah. Here, I think I want to go for the search, and then if they try and counter it, we can fight back. That'll also deprive them of their mana if they wish to Glimmer of Genius or something here. Alright, so they're going for Disallow. We'll stop that. And we don't really care too much what they resolve here. We have a cast out for like a Gideon or something. We have an active Azcanta in play. And if it's a Caracol, we'll answer it at some point with Fumigate maybe. Ooh, okay. Ixalan's Binding. We can get it back at instant speed with cast out. I think I might actually do that. Yeah, let's do that. And so the struggle begins. Casting out cast outs is generally pretty fun. Oof, they have a Field of Ruin. So now I might not even bother flipping the search. That's okay. I'm gonna cycle the Censor here. This is at least filtering our draws. We can get rid of redundant lands. Illumination. I can do better than that. And we've got a Sarcophagus. I want to hit every land that I can, because that's what it's going to come down to. I think a pivotal turn. I need to be able to like Fumigate the Regal Caracol and then still fight back the next turn. So they're going to get to Glimmer. I can't really do anything about it. Could try cycling Cast Out and Illumination looking for like a Countervailing Winds, but I don't really like doing that. See what they have here. Gideon of the Trials, okay. Not a huge issue. I think we're just going to go for the Illumination here. Are they going to activate Gideon? It's not a huge deal, but yeah, they might as well get the emblem. Right, we haven't actually resolved a Drakehaven against our opponent in either game, I think. So hopefully we find one of those soon. Opponent going to counter this, maybe? Or Glimmer themselves. Okay, cast out our cast out, and then they bind our thing. So now if I can find a Ixalan's Binding of my own, that'd be pretty sweet. I'd get to name, cast out, and then there's really not a lot of ways they can interact with it. Okay, we're still just gonna wait. We could Sarcophagus, and then from the grave we can cast something. I kind of like doing that. If they go for an approach, we could censor it and cycle Renewed Faith or something, but that's not very likely. Ah, second Field of Ruin. Okay, I'm not too attached to this Azcanta anyway. But we got like 6 turns before this guy kills us, thanks to cycling the Renewed Faith. Opponent's down to 3 cards in hand. Quite a bit of land, though. Let's just try and draw some cards, essentially for free. Hopefully they don't have like a Gearhulk or something. That looks like a Gearhulk to me. Well, I guess I get to Fumigate it. And again, I'm not really losing too much. They might actually just go for the... Yeah, they're just going to Glimmer here, so I'll get the cards as well. That is a little scary, though. They're back up to 4, soon 5 cards. I'd still very much like to find an Ixalan's Binding. Binding? Nope. I think I'm just going to Fumigate that away. This puts us at risk to a Caracol, but there's not much else I can do, really. And that actually is concerning in regards to our life total. Our opponent's been through a Glimmer and a Disallow and a Gearhulk, so they haven't used that many critical spells. That's okay. So we are out of board wipes. We are dependent on Cast Out and Drakehaven to deal with our opponent here. Could this be approach number 1 or Caracol? Cast Out on our Sarcophagus. Yeah, Yeah. It's not a big deal. If I find Ixalan's Binding, this is going to be a chain of naming cast outs, getting back cast outs, and then just rebuilding my board out of nowhere. So I'm really just looking for Ixalan's Binding. But another cast out would also be handy. Something good. Drakehaven. Okay, not what I wanted, but it's okay. Gideon is still zeroing every turn, so we can still answer him. Oops. Let's try and resolve this Drakehaven here. If our opponent wants to fight, I think we're kind of forced to Countervailing Winds. Disallow, yep. Not a huge deal to do this. Once we get back our Abandoned Sarcophagus, then we have access to this Countervailing Winds once again. And once the Drakehaven is in play, they've already used 3 of their answers to it. Oh, they're on search for Azcanta, huh? They're a ways away from flipping it, at least. I could produce a Drake here to start attacking Gideon, but I think I'm going to hang on. Well, actually, our opponent's down to 1 card. I think I need to wait. I need to be able to use this cast out to, like, get back our Sarcophagus or something. Sunscourge, that's not terrible. I can chump it to Gideon, and then eternalize it, discarding a land, getting a Drake out of the deal. So that's something. And I think before our opponent draws a card, they're blowing up my lands. Oh, they're trying to fill their graveyard, presumably. Okay, that's actually fine. Probably do this end step then. Let's see if they want to do it again. 1, 2, 3. So I could cast out now, and then that way I'd have hieroglyphic. I could cast Hieroglyphic Illumination. I kind of like doing that. So I'm just going to cast out this cast out. Oh, my opponent had another counterspell. Or a Glimmer. Gearhulk. Oh man. Well, I guess that's a reason to have waited. That is unfortunate. I have to keep countering. So they're out of cards, but they have Azcanta. It's not going to flip just yet. Whereas I have a Drakehaven that's not doing a whole lot. If I could find an Ixalan's Binding, that would start the chain, though. I'd hit this cast out, naming their cast out. I'd get to cast out this cast out. I'd get out of my choice of getting my Sarcophagus or my Search back. They're casting out. Okay, well, that was an unfortunate top deck for them. So they're going to hit us for 9. Oh, they're going to name the Haven. That's probably okay. That buys us some time. I'm still going to chump here, I think. Even though I could crack back at Gideon, I think I want to save our life, gain some life, and we'll see what happens. If I can get my Drakehaven back, then I can get advantage off of the discard. That's not what we needed. I'm not even going to bother playing the Shefet Dunes. But at least now if they attack us, I can crack back and kill Gideon. So they may not do that. Opponent's still top decking here. Actual top deck because they milled away the Glacial Fortress. Okay, we're still in the game, but we are behind. We're like a couple of critical spells away from prevailing, I think. So they're just going to tick up Gideon on my Sunscourge Champion. That is fine. Can I just draw anything that's not a land, I think. Ixalan's Binding would be great if they don't have a counterspell. Countervailing Winds. I think I have to cycle it. I'm in a losing position otherwise. Okay, Gearhulk is something. I can flash in the Gearhulk and kill their Gearhulk, and then attack Gideon after, if they don't use him first. I could also just wait for them to tick up Gideon and then flash in the Gearhulk. Okay, if they don't have a counter spell, I think we're in very good shape. But they chose not to put it in the grave, so they're instead opting. That's probably what they kept on top. If they go for the kill here, that would be fantastic. If they have like their 4th cast out on our Sunscourge Champion, animate Gideon, try and kill us, and I get to flash in Gearhulk. That does not bode well that they put the card on top though. But I'm kind of out of options here, so let's try. Disallow. Glimmer into disallow, maybe. If they don't find it, I get to Hieroglyphic Illumination. Okay. Get to draw some cards, and now I can kill Gideon maybe. I will cast this for free. Countervailing Winds would have been nice there. Alright, so I could double block this and kill it, but I think I just want to get Gideon off the board, so do this instead. They can tick up Gideon on my Gearhulk, but then I get to hit him back down to 1, and I have my 5/6 to block theirs next turn. So we're still live. If we find an Ixalan's Binding, I think the game might be over. Okay, oh, what am I doing? Let's play the Drakehaven, see if that resolves. I could also sack the Shefet Dunes on Sunscourge to kill him, but let's not bother with that. Let's try and find something good here. At this point, every card in our deck besides land is good, I'd say. It's either a counter spell, a draw spell, a ooh, okay, or that. Yeah. They're one turn away from flipping their Azcanta, which is annoying. So maybe I want to answer that. Let's see what we can do. Let's attack Gideon. I guess they might have cited out the whole plan with, what's it called? Ooh, Settle the Wreckage. That is beautiful. Okay, I'm very happy with that. They might have just cited out their, whatchamacallits, approaches. So now I get to Ixalan's Binding. I get to pop your cast out, getting back my cast out. And then I get either my Sarcophagus. Have I played a land yet? I have not. So I can actually get back my Sarcophagus, play my land, and then I have Countervailing Winds. I think I like that a lot. I don't need Drakehaven. Yeah, let's get this back. And now our opponent can't do anything with their 4th cast out besides cycle it, if they find one. Still got to deal with Gideon, but he's no longer really a threat. Our opponent does have Azcanta, which is a threat, absolutely. But I have 2 Countervailing Winds and like Renewed Faith and everything, access, and yeah, that might be good enough. Still looking for my Field of Ruin. Uh-oh, Gideon's coming in now. He has to attack with both. I could trade a Drake for that, and then counterattack. I don't know how likely that is to work. Our opponent's got to have something, like a Gearhulk or a Caracal, but I have a counterspell. I think I just want to kill the Gearhulk here. Either way, I'm losing this Drake, I think. It's like chumping. You know, Gearhulk can block Gideon and chump the Gearhulk with my Drake or something to prevent any damage, but this way I get to actually kill their Gearhulk. And then maybe crack back on Gideon. If I get to untap with two Countervailing Winds to our opponent's 2 spells, that sounds pretty sweet. Fumigate, okay. surprised I still have that. I'm going to go ahead and burn a... actually, do I even care? Yeah, I think I want to burn Countervailing Winds on that. Get them to counter back, maybe. I'm okay with that exchange. Spell Pierces. Jeez, okay. Well, our opponent has no cards. They only have Azcanta and Gideon, whereas we still have some stuff in the grave. Not actually dead to Gideon next turn because of the Renewed Faith. But I do want to blow this up at some point. Alright, Censor's good. I'm just going to do this main phase, in case we find another search for Azcanta or something. And we don't. Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 11 or 12 mana. What's necessary? If I want to have 3 for Countervailing Winds, I still have 9. Oh, I could just cast out here. I can cast out the Ixalan's Binding to get back my search. I can cast out the Gideon. I kind of want to get my my thing back. So let's just take out that Binding now. Our opponent can dig for a Negate maybe off of Azcanta, but we can still force through. I'd like to do it now because then we can actually censor them. They only have 2 mana up. Kind of hope they find Negate and try it. Yep, they found it. Okay. So if they Negate now, I just censor it. Very happy to get that out of the way. Yeah, make sure they don't have some hidden mana somewhere. And now I have... this is actually a little scary. I want my search back or deal with Gideon? I want my search back. I can kill Gideon pretty quickly. I can chump him here as well. I'm going to blow that up. Get my search. I can play my land. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I have 3 mana open for Countervailing Winds, and I can just gain some life now before our opponent finds something obnoxious. They can hit me down to 6. That's not nearly enough. And then I get to start hitting back at Gideon. Oh, I forgot about this Field of Ruin. That is going to be annoying, but it's fine. Let's see what our opponent has for us. I've just got multiple engines going. Even if I only get to dig once off the search for Azcanta, I'll be content, I think. They found a Negate. That's obnoxious. But we shall overcome, I hope. Down to 6. This is a pretty intense game we have. 2 different takes on blue-white control. I like it. I think I will transform Azcanta just to get our opponent to use their Field of Ruin. I can find a second, and I get to at least dig something out of here, hopefully. Alright, Farmland is pretty decent. Attack you, Gideon. Kill him next turn pretty reliably. I'm assuming that is targeting, yep, okay. So let's find something good. Negate and Drakehaven. I'm sad to see the Gearhulk go. I'm just going to take the Negate here. I have another token coming in a second, and I can kill Gideon then, and it's going to be our opponent's Azcanta is all they really have left. Still want to draw my Field of Ruin. This is pretty intense. I have 1 basic left. Even if our opponent just pluses here, that'd be fine. Okay, whatever. So they still have a Negate in hand we know about. But I have a Countervailing Winds and Negate ready. Opponent can hit us down to 2. I put a card on top just now. That's a little disconcerting. If it's another Gearhulk, we can at least fight it with the Countervailing Winds and Negate to hit their Negate, so I'm not too worried about that. But we're really looking for more cyclers here. Disallow the trigger. Okay, wow. What are they disallowing? The Drakehaven. Okay, that's fine. I still get to draw a card, which might find me another cycler. No. Ooh. Okay. Well, I could kill Gideon here. I kind of have to go for it. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, I'm gonna go for it. This is kind of scary though. Opponent has a negate and something, and an Azcanta activation. Another disallow? Okay. So no Gearhulk to worry about killing us on the crackback. And we have 2 Drakehavens in place shortly. Well, that's probably not going to resolve actually. But as long as I get to get Gideon off the board, I think we're in decent shape here. Goodbye, Gideon. Then I'm going to play Drakehaven, hoping that they burn a negate on it. They don't. Wow. Okay, okay. Whew. This is quite the match. Their Azcanta is definitely keeping them alive in this game. Azor, yeah, I can't beat that. So they're gonna, this is bad. They're gonna get to resolve this guy. Because I have a negate, they have a negate, but they still prevail even through my censors here. I can censor them twice. If I had the mana, I can only do it once, and they have 2 mana to pay anyway. So yeah, that's not going to do it. So they get Azor, and then I can't cast instants or sorceries, and then if they want, they get to Sphinx's Revelation, gain 1,000,000 life, draw 1,000,000 cards, and I will promptly lose, I think. Alright, we're at the mercy of the top deck. If I can find a cast out, ugh, I worry that's a turn too late. Our opponent's going to get to draw as many cards as they want, and if they find removal, they'll just kill us. That's a terrible shame, because we pretty much locked them out of dealing with our Drakehavens at this point, and I just needed more cyclers, really. Gideon's fine. Wow, they almost tapped all their white sources. That would have been funny. Yep, I get to draw full hand. I'm happy we get to see this guy in action, at least. Alright, I'll trade with you, sir. Every cycler that I find now, though, I get to create 2 chump blockers. One for Gideon and one for Azor. So I just need to rattle off a bunch of cyclers in a row. Okay. Renewed Faith, I'll keep that. And I will transform. Okay. This will be interesting. Let's see what our opponent can do. Wow, though, if we manage to come back and win through an Azor and double Gideon and multiple turns with his Azcanta, I'll be very surprised. But this is Magic, the way that Richard Garfield intended it, I believe. Alright, so they have 2 lethal attackers. Let's see how many cards they want to draw first. Because I can't really stop that. None. Alright, so they think they have the tools to win, perhaps. Okay. Gain our life. And make 2 little buddies. And as long as they just get to blocks, it's too late for them to really do anything. I don't have to worry about trample or anything like that. If they want to like disallow the second Drake, I can maybe draw another Cycler. I can always dig for one with Azcanta. Okay, okay. Cast out is good. I think it's my last answer to Azor. What is this? Can't cast out, buddy. If that's what you are trying to do, you're under wraps. Okay, so I get to block. I could have been fancy and like tried to cycle this again, getting enough blockers to deal with Azor, but I think I can answer him anyway. Just with what's in my graveyard. Approach of the Second Sun. And cast out. Nothing. Alright. I just want to draw cards because I can indefinitely hold this guy off. We could probably just win through timing him out or making him draw to death. I gotta be careful I don't actually draw myself to death. Everything I do cycles. Let's just make more Drakes though. Gearhulk is decent. Alright. I'm going to just cast this to draw the last 2 Cyclers maybe, draw a Field of Ruin or something like that. I don't even know what I could look for here. But I like drawing cards. Opponent has a Gearhulk to disallow this maybe? Or Supreme Will, sure. I'm happy with that. I'm just going to pass right now. I can actually kill them over time. Oh, what am I doing? I should have attacked Gideon. I apologize for that, everyone. That was probably correct to do, unless they have another Settle the Wreckage. I could have just popped Gideon for 2, and then gone from there. I have 8 Drakes in hand, essentially. Silent Gravestone. Okay, that's kind of cool. Just exiles everything. Where is it? I have to use 4 mana to do it. So, yeah, that's fine. If they try to activate it, I'm going to go all in on this cast out. Okay, so let's cast out. Make some Drakes. Azor can't really even attack. Drill the Field of Ruin. Now I get to cast out. This is a pretty fantastic game, I must say. It resolves. I could get another Drake Haven back. Because, yeah, I don't even really care about Azor anymore. I don't really care about Gideon. So I'm just going to get back my other Drake Haven. And make more Drakes. Is there anything I really want to cast before it's gone? Just the Renewed Faith, maybe. This puts me out of reach of even if they got both of these guys through somehow. I'm sure I'd have 1 blocker, at least, to survive. So now everything is gone. And I still have 3 Drakes in hand. Okay. Yeah, I'll get to kill Gideon here. I think we're gonna prevail in the end. Through one hell of a match. I must hand it to our opponent. Azor is kind of cool, but I don't know if I would even really benefit from playing him in the sideboard. I was very interested at seeing him printed, but I think we draw through our deck well enough as it is. Another gravestone, sure. Alright, yeah, we're gonna get to make 3 drakes here, start attacking our opponent, and kill Gideon once and for all. And that will do it. Okay, so we didn't technically win just yet. I only had like 10 more turns at most. The downside of cycling is it runs through your deck pretty quickly, but I would have just drawn another cycler off of this. 2, 3. Couldn't actually use it this turn. I could have played my 4th and final Drake Haven, and yeah, I still had the Countervailing Winds in the grave, which was probably enough to win from there. But yeah, that was a pretty insane match. We played against the most controlling of control decks, and we managed to get there. So 2-0, prevailed against Merfolk and blue-white control so far. Stay tuned for the next one. Welcome back, everyone. Here we are in match 3 on the play this time with an interesting hand. I'm not really too keen on this pull from tomorrow in our opener, but we've got the cyclers, and we do technically have the lands to get to at least cycling Renewed Faith and Censor and all that. So I'll start things off with an Irrigated Farmland. See what we're up against. Green. Alright, could be dinosaurs, more merfolk. Hopefully something new. Kind of tired of playing against blue decks all the time. Okay, so it might be a dino matchup here. Drover of the Mighty would indicate that. So I'm going to censor that just to deprive them of mana for a bit. We do have the Fumigate, which will be relevant at some point. It'd probably sweep that away. But I just kind of want to use the Censor as a removal spell. It gets weaker against Drover. I'd rather than not cast like a 3-drop here and know that they can safely play it through Censor. Revealing a Carnage Tyrant. And I definitely want to hang on to Fumigate until that guy comes down, because there's really not a lot of ways to deal with him. Trample, Hexproof, Uncounterable, 7/6. Let's definitely cycle Renewed Faith. We'll see if we need to cycle the Cast Out, if we still miss on lands. Because of Pull from Tomorrow, we just want to hit every land that we can. Wipe the board with Fumigate and Settle the Wreckage, and then refill our hand with Pull from Tomorrow. So this is good. We found the Field of Ruin, so we know that we have a 5th land coming soon. If we must, we can Fumigate. I don't think there's actually any utility lands that we really have to worry about using the Field of Ruin on. Definitely possible, but we'll see. I could just remove that with a cast out here, but I don't particularly care that much. They're eating my graveyard, but that's really only relevant in game 1 with the Sarcophagus and flipping a Search for Azcanta. So I'm just going to wait for now and see what we draw. Okay, Counterspell. Because of that, actually I take that back. There is a reason to preserve our graveyard, and that's Countervailing Winds. So hopefully our opponent plays the Carnage Tyrant here, and I get to Fumigate. If they don't, I might just have to cast this guy out. I could also draw 3 cards off Pull from Tomorrow here, or I could wait and get more. Kind of hoping for the Carnage Tyrant. Odipek Huntmaster. Okay, nothing else. So this can make the Dino Lord hasty next turn. It's kind of spooky. I'm just going to draw 3 cards, I think. Actually, no. I'm going to Fumigate anyway. And then I have Settle the Wreckage for this big guy. So let's just Fumigate and try and delay for a bit longer. And see what our opponent can cobble together here. There's Carnage Tyrant, not that exciting. Yikes, I really wish we had a settle. We could settle while cycling. I'm going to take a huge risk, I think. We can still Countervailing Wind something nasty. We're only going to take 7 damage here if we do entirely whiff. That should be okay. If I find an untapped land here, this is really nice, just to keep hitting our land drops. Okay, and we do. So I like to take risks from time to time, makes it more exciting. But at least now we are protected with a Settle the Wreckage here. Opponent not revealing a dinosaur, just casting Migration for the full price. See if they want to walk into it. They do. Alright, so let's use our mana and get that guy out of here. If they have a second one, that's a little concerning, but with a big Pull from Tomorrow, we can find the answer. Just going to play the Search, counter whatever they do, probably cycle this cast out as well. And the next turn, we can pull from tomorrow and probably just end the game with what we find. Yeah, our opponent doesn't have much going on. I'm going to keep cycling cast outs. And even the Countervailing Winds. This way we can transform Azcanta right away. Can even ramp us up. Our opponent didn't want to bother. So we would have revealed an island and binned it, and then found a renewed faith, transformed Azcanta, had like 6 mana to pull from tomorrow, a total of 8 mana, so drawing 6. And that's probably enough to end the game. So, red-green dinosaurs, with things like Odapek Huntmaster, and I've even heard tale of this, it's like a red and 1 colorless for a 1/1 that when it attacks, it can produce a gigantic amount of elemental creatures that are tapped and attacking, and if you have the City's Blessing, they actually stay. Ordinarily, they're exiled at the end of combat, but with the City's Blessing, they stick around. So, Authority of the Consuls sounds kind of interesting for something like that. Baffling End definitely seems worthwhile for hitting a Scavenger, or one of those Huntmasters, or Drover of the Mighty or something. I like recasting Settle the Wreckages, even if they have like a Braid or Naturalize from my Torrential Gearhulk, we still get the value off of the graveyard. Kind of reluctant to add Ixalan's Binding. I don't think we need like negates or anything, so if we kept something like this, we could probably take out like the Countervailing Winds. Maybe a pull from tomorrow. I kind of want to see how this might work. Let's actually bring in the Ixalan's Binding. It's a little risky, but I think it's going to be more useful than the Countervailing Winds. And that way we can maybe just hit like a Death Gorge Scavenger or the Odapek Huntmasters even. It's nice knowing that we don't have to worry about them. So this is a very similar hand to last time. A bunch of cyclers. We do have a Settle the Wreckage, which I like a lot. Seems very difficult for our opponent to answer it. They can probably make their guys indestructible or hexproof, but neither of those gets around the almighty Settle. So let's see what they have on turn 2. We can double cycle or something. Right, Huntmaster. Finding land is good. Okay. So the game plan is to hopefully Fumigate if they tap low enough. I'd like to get rid of this guy before they can like play a hasty Carnage Tyrant or something. Or Regisar Alpha. Okay, they're just communing for lands. I like that. And attacking for 1. I also like that. So let's actually let's use a Censor. At best, they could cast a 4-drop Dino and give it haste. Oh, excuse me, a 5-drop. So like Regisar Alpha, and then hit us for 7. And then the turn after that, maybe we're lucky we hit a 4th land. Not a huge fan of that. I'm actually gonna pitch the cast out. We can get it back through the Sarcophagus if need be. Maybe around turn 7. I could play the Drakehaven, and then next turn we could get double cycle value. I kind of like doing that. And that should prompt them to then commit more to the board, especially like Tramplers and whatnot. So that's where Fumigate and Settle come in. This doesn't actually give Trample, just +2/+3. Alright, just a Ripjaw Raptor. Hasty 4/5. So unfortunately I don't really want to block that with my double cyclers, so this is interesting. I'm going to let them just hit me, probably. If they tap low enough post-combat, I might just Fumigate. If not, I guess we'll have to wait and see what we draw. And they do, in fact, have Arch of Erazka. I was talking last game about Field of Ruin not really having any targets, but if anything, I would suspect they have something like this. And I guess Oasis is nice to hit, too. Right, play that Carnage Tyrant, you know you want to. I like this. They won't have any green mana. And this, I don't like that, actually. So untap a land, blah, blah, blah. Return permanents from grave to hand. So it doesn't really do anything right now, but I could just censor it. I think I will do that. I could also produce some drakes and attack it, but that seems not necessary. So let's just censor that. And then we could wipe the board. in which case I don't really need to Illumination here. Yeah, I kind of like doing that. And the next turn, we've got make a Drake, as well as we could even like play the Sarcophagus and make use of it. We could also just Settle the Wreckage and make a Drake or something like that. So I think that'll be good. Just another Ripjaw Raptor, sure. Alright, so this seems like a less than ideal draw from our opponent. I suppose that's what happens. Here, I'm going to wait, let this hit me, and then next turn we can play the Sarcophagus and immediately cast out the Ripjaw Raptor. There's no reason to chump block here, giving them a card in the process. And they're still 3 permanents away from the Blessing for this Arch. Drover the Mighty, okay. Do I just want to draw 2 cards? Is that better than a Drake? It could be, actually. I'm going to try this. Okay, Field of Ruin. That's not useful yet, but it will be. Let's just play the Sarcophagus and have a... We can draw cards, we can cast out, and we can Settle the Wreckage. So we have options to do virtually everything. I'll surprise our opponent with the Field of Ruin. Just the one. Kind of want to hang on to the Settle for a bit longer, so if they have hexproof on this guy, that's okay. If not, get rid of it. And is this Big Daddy Carnage Tyrant? Yes, it is. Alright, so that's the reason to hang on to the Settle the Wreckage. Can't really chump him even, so... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's play Field of Ruin now. And I'll have 1, 2, 6. I actually have exactly enough. I can Settle and Illuminate. Or I can just use the Field of Ruin to keep them from getting a card off of this. They're 1 permanent away. So I can see that they're about to add one, like that. I can't give it haste, fortunately. I can immediately blow up the Arch and then settle this turn. I think I like doing that. So they... Oh, they won't even... Yeah, they'll have enough mana. They can tap 5 to draw a card. So let's just get rid of that now. And I like islands better here. So, we are in a bit of trouble, as they have a ginormous 12/12 Trampler. I could wait another turn, actually. I think I'm okay with that. Yeah, I'll go down to 2. And then we really just need to find like a Fumigate to end the game, I think. So, let's try and do that. I'm going to do this to get a Drake, and we can still cast it next turn. So... We have a Drake, we have a bunch of cards in hand, a bunch of cyclers. I don't have any ways of permanently dealing with these 2 tramplers is the issue, aside from like Settle the Wreckage or something. So here, no reason to even have any pretense of blocking. I'm just gonna let them know loud and clear that we got Settle the Wreckage coming. And if they want to like only attack with the Drover, we can just spit out some chump blockers. I expect they're only going to attack with 1, maybe 2 things here. Just 1. Yeah, that is worth dealing with. Hopefully my top, like, 5 cards have another Settle or Fumigate in them. Preferably Settle the Wreckage, I think. Ooh, another Carnage Tyrant. Alright, so now if we find the board wipe, there's very little chance of losing here. We can't actually kill our opponent, even if we find Shefet Dunes, can we? Yeah, I can make, like, at most 2 more Drakes. So, let's just make a Drake here, and... If I don't make a Drake, I can then immediately draw another 2 cards. That probably is necessary, actually. There's no way that I'm making enough Drakes to block these 2 Tramplers, so I'm actually not going to. I'm just going to immediately draw the cards. Oh, well, sometimes you get lucky. I'm still going to draw the cards, because I really like doing that. and continue to attack our opponent. There's really nothing they can do about the Settle the Wreckage. So once again, I expect they're just going to attack with the one Carnage Tyrant. I could actually produce 3 Drakes to block it, but then they have the 1 damage trample over, and if they have like any trick to get rid of a Drake, we just lose. So there's really no reason to do that. If they're sacking an Oasis here, okay. I like that a lot. Goodbye. But same position as before, now we need more Drakes. Or our opponent just concedes. So the game was not yet quite over. Let's see, we had 2, 4, 6 mana, so I could have cycled both farmlands and made a Drake in both cases. So we would have drawn 2 cards and then drawn a third. So yeah, I think that was a bit premature. We would have just probably held them back, create enough chump blockers or actual blockers to kill the tyrant. Then I would have just had like a Censor and 2 Baffling Ends in hand. I guess I still had some stuff in the grave with the Abandoned Sarcophagus, but yeah, we were a ways away from finding an answer to this tyrant, so I think that was a bit premature, but we have bested Merfolk and Blue-White Control and now Dinosaurs, so undefeated so far. Let's move on to match 4. Stay tuned, everybody. Alrighty, here we are in match 4 on the draw. Opponent is mulliganing to 6. We've had quite a number of opponents mulliganing, actually. I don't think we have had to, except maybe one time. Just to show the power of how good cycling can be. Keeping even the sketchiest of hands. Alright, so this could be like a mono-black aggro deck, but I'm surprised they didn't have a 1-drop. Could be like a vampire mid-range. Guess we'll see. Okay, so Oathsworn enters tapped. You can recast him from the grave. Not that impressive. Kind of like saving the cast out for something like that, but I also like the idea of maybe just cycling rapidly, filling the grave for a turn 3 Countervailing Winds to hit their 4-drop maybe. It's probably not necessary though. We're going to cycle the farmland this turn, I think. We're looking for Settle the Wreckage and Fumigate, things like that. Bontu. Oh geez. Alright, so this is just some steady life drain. That's really not that big of a deal. It'll take a while before it's really impactful. And we can cast it out when need be. Is this mono black vampires? I'm intrigued already. Here, so we could Baffling End this guy away, setting up next turn to cast out the Bontu's Monument. We could just hold up Countervailing Winds for like a 4-drop. It'd have to like, because black creatures are cheapened, it'd be like a 5-drop, or if our opponent misses on land or something. I think I just want to Baffling End that guy, and then maybe cycle next turn. We can expect to cycle many things just because we have the Sarcophagus to recur them. Okay, all they have is a 2/2. So, let's just cycle, you know. Renew Faith. Alright, and Drakehaven, okay. I like that. We can just slam Drakehaven. Next turn we've got 5 mana, so we can cycle Cast Out and Renewed Faith, make a couple Drakes, attack. Turn after that we could maybe go for the Sarcophagus or something. Our opponent is stuck on lands after all. Yeah, Henny, alright. It's good, but we can deal with that. Down to 12, but we can gain some life in a pinch with Renewed Faith, as much as like 8 life between the cycle and then recasting it. Or we could cast it for the full 6, play the Sarcophagus, and cast it again for 12 life. Sacrificing. So if something has died, they want more. Oh, they just want to recast it again. That's kind of clever. Okay, I like this. Interesting deck of our opponents. Gotta get that value when necessary. So, probably going to cycle both here, especially the Renewed Faith, but we might end up having to actually hard cast it at some point. We'll see. See what our opponent does pre-combat. They attack with both. We assume they have like a fatal. Oh, they're playing around. Okay. Um, hmm. Let's start with the Countervailing Winds. I'm not going to like use Countervailing Winds on a Fatal Push or something to save our token. So I'll just throw this guy in front. Draw a card. Our opponent can now Fatal Push. I can then make another Drake, attempt to block. And then they can recast it, I guess for just 1 mana. That's actually maybe not the best. I might just let this go. Unfortunately, things generating and dying does also grow Yahenni, I realize. But that's not a huge deal. Alright, let's just take the 2, because they'll replay it anyway off Bontu's Monument. And we want to gain the 2 life now? I think we do. Just to make use of our mana and find some more action, maybe. No Drake, but gain some life. Search for Azcanta. Ooh, Fumigate, alright. So I could play the Sarcophagus, threaten them with more Drakes, but also just cast Renewed Faith once again, or have Countervailing Winds ready. I kind of like doing that. I am looking for Settle the Wreckage. They have a lot of things that actually play very well against things like Fumigate. This guy just comes back after making this indestructible. They're draining us repeatedly, casting them for cheap. So I will actually just take this hit down to 6, and then go back up to 12, I think. So always have something to do. And now I can cycle the cast out and use it in the same turn, which I kind of like. Well, there's a Settle the Wreckage. Oh, can't forget to play my land. Actually, could also play the search. I'm gonna wait. I'll wait to play the search for Azcanta until necessary, until we can maybe flip it. This way I get to cast Countervailing Winds as well as Settle the Wreckage. Just him. Alright, let's make a Drake. Just the 1. See if he's got an effect for it. Can make another Drake. I'll go ahead and block though. It saves us a life. It does grow Yahenni, but we have the cast out for it. I definitely like Baffling End. I think we're gonna get a lot of use out of that. And if there's nothing else here except for the Oathsworn, I can Fumigate Yahenni away. It needs actual things to sacrifice to it. So I could cast out the Vampire if they have nothing else, and then Fumigate Yahenni away. Ooh, I could just Fumigate now, period. Why did they not recast that? They don't have the City's Blessing. Are they holding up something I don't know about? If I find a land, I can still Countervailing Winds, so I kind of like that. Let's just draw some cards then. If there's some blowout here that I'm not foreseeing. I'll keep the Censor. I can try a Fumigate. They need a creature to make this indestructible, and oh, that's why. They can only recast if they gain life this turn. I should probably have read that more carefully. So that would explain it. So let's just do this, and then have Countervailing Winds for 2 if we cast it from the grave, or 3 from our hand. We can answer the Bontu's Monument at our leisure. Treasure Map. Okay, that takes time to actually accomplish anything. I could have countered that, but I think I'd rather just start making Drakes and attacking. It'll take 3 turns before this can transform, and a 4th turn before it actually does anything. I will want to answer the Arch before it flips, though, because that will give them the City's Blessing. So let's go ahead and make our offense begin to grow. So at this point, it's just a matter of navigating how do we keep our opponent from getting back into the game, because they are very, very far ways away from doing that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 permanents in play. I could play the Search for Azcanta, but I think we're not going to really get much time to use it. I'm just going to produce a bunch of Drakes this turn, and then cast out probably the treasure map or maybe the monument. They just need any creature to cast to trigger the Bontu's monument. And they have only managed to find 3 creatures this game. Presumably they just drew a swamp. I'm very interested in this deck, what the payoff is, maybe for being mono black. Vraska's Contempt on my token. To gain life, blah blah blah. Yeah, there's no way to stop them from gaining life in that case, that's fine. Unless we countered it, but I don't really care that much. Okay, so let's start by casting out, and then I can make 2 tokens. Yeah, they can have their treasure map for a little bit longer. I'll just answer this guy for good. We'll gain some life ourselves. Just gotta click through and draw another counterspell. That's it. Nifty. And yeah, I think the game is largely over, even if our opponent doesn't realize it yet. But having 4 or 5 cyclers access to, and then an Abandoned Sarcophagus out as well. They can keep on scrying all they want, but I don't think it's going to do much. Here we could actually produce 3 Drakes. That would be 5 Drakes total, so 10 power, 2-turn clock. Even with them gaining life off the Bontu's monument, we still have the Shefet Dunes to get that last little bit of damage in. So they have managed to transform the Cove, but they can't actually use it this turn. I'm just going to play Yahenni, that's fine, I can block that. So it might take longer than 2 turns, but we have the inevitability on our side, even with this Treasure Cove. And then I'm going to risk attacking. Trick number 2. Let's shorten this window a little bit. Ooh, and a Renewed Faith. I'd rather use that, I think. Renewed Faith being the only one, of course, that there's an added step, because it has a secondary effect when you cycle it, in addition to drawing the card. Alright. Well, we even find a Field of Ruin, just to deprive our opponent of their Treasure Cove. Yeah, might as well do it. So let's, well, actually the Arch is good too, but they have to like tap out to use it. They might just do that now. If we blow up the Treasure Cove, they'd have to, all 5 mana, yeah. That's whatever, they can have their treasure. We have a Cast Out and a bunch of Countervailing Winds in the grave, so yeah, we'll just make an army of Drakes this turn and finish it there. We've got access to many, many counterspells. Dusklegion Zealot. It's cool. They don't actually lose any life from casting it. This guy is a 1 mana, replaces himself by immediately drawing a card and drains your opponent for a life. It's pretty cool. So mono black. I'm assuming they're not splashing white for maybe some kind of enchantment removal or something. There's going to be a lot of discard coming in, I'm guessing, in game 2. So we'll have to watch out for that, but yeah, this first game seems like it was heavily in our favor. Sure. We just have lethal as it is, so yeah, I don't even have to bother wasting our time with cycling more. Okay, so Yahenni and a bunch of 1/1s or 2/2s. Sounds like Sunscourge Champion will be great here. Unless they are playing white, Ixalan's Binding seems like a pretty safe include as well, so just Baffling End. The only thing we saw worth spyglassing are the lands, the Arch of Azcanta, the Treasure Cove, and Yahenni. That could be worth consideration. We can also forsake the treasure map before it flips. Try this out. Okay. So what do we take out though? I actually like just about everything we have, because even something like Pull from Tomorrow is nice against a discard heavy deck, because you can just top deck this like turn 6-7 and refill your hand. I also like them discarding things because I like keeping the Abandoned Sarcophagus for that reason. We can probably take out the Countervailing Winds. Might even be able to shave a Drakehaven or two if we're bringing in Gearhulks and Sunscourge Champions. Let's take out maybe a Settle or two. I don't know about that. Censor maybe. This is a little difficult actually, because they're like an aggressive deck, so I want to keep the Renewed Faith and the Sweepers, but they're also somewhat mid-rangey with late game applications with the Treasure Cove and the Arch of Azcanta, things like that. All these games making me think Field of Ruin might be necessary as like a 2-of. It's quite strong. Take out the Pull and a Fumigate and a Drakehaven and one Settle perhaps. Let's take out a Search for Azcanta on the draw. We can bring it back on the play. Also nice for when your opponent is making you discard cards, because it can fix your draws going forward, but it'll be a bit too slow here. So we have one Cycler, and then any land we find, we have a second Cycler with a Drakehaven. Let's try it out. Could be a little ambitious, but we'll see. Nope, the turn 1 duress, classic. I do like having a Drakehaven out, and then when they duress you, you just get a 1-mana token. Ooh, okay, that was a good draw. I'll happily play it. They actually took the Drakehaven, so we're going to be probably using these censors to cycle or counter like a Bontu's Monument maybe. This is just a 2-mana 2/2 or a 1/1 or a 2/3. That is acceptable. Unfortunately, they do know about the Settle the Wreckage. I don't expect to be getting them with it anytime soon. See what our opponent decides to do on turn 3. Could just play the Bontu's Monument, which we would probably censor if it's not a Yahenni, or they would have played it pre-combat probably. They do know about the censors, so they're probably just going to play another 2-drop to play around it. That's my guess. Yep. Okay, let's cycle you. Try and draw something relevant here. Land would be good. Don't need more cast outs yet. Land is good. Alright. So we're 1 land away from Settle the Wreckage. Our opponent does not know about cast out number 2 or the Gearhulk, which might be handy for settling a second time. It's not very easy for them to get rid of it. I don't think they're playing like Dispossess or anything. Maybe Kitesail. Yep, Kitesail Freebooters. That's okay. Our hand is just very redundant. They can only take one of the 2 censors or one of the 2 cast outs or the Settle, but we can just get the Settle back by casting out next turn. Hopefully. Our opponent's back down to 2 cards with just a pair of 2 power dudes and a 1/2 attacking us. Things could be much worse. And they take the Settle. That seems wise. It'll force us to use a cast out on this 1/2 before we can do anything. Can't think of any 2-drop that I would consider cycling for now, so we'll just wait, see what else they do, and hold up a Censor rather, in case they play something scary. Another Aetherborn. Let's cycle once. And I'll go ahead and counter that. We do want to be conservative with our life total here. We're just trying to survive to 6 mana, really. Ooh. Let's use the Illumination, actually. We're just looking for lands. Maybe search for Azcanta or something. I'm actually just going to use this. Use our mana and get us closer to playing Gearhulk. No land. Alright, that's unfortunate. We did keep a 1-lander, but even so, we've got 21 left in our deck. Just a 2/2. Alright. They don't actually know about the second Settle, so if we top deck a land here, they're probably just going to attack expecting a cast out, and that's where we get them. Alright. I'm looking to get to Fumigate range now, so as painful as this is, oh jeez. Let's keep trying. There we go. And I may as well just play the Search. I could probably use this to leverage my way into a 5th land. This clears the way for them to hit us for 7, but unless they have a drain effect after that, or an Anthem somehow, I think we're okay. Onto. It's annoying. They can recast the Oath Sworn after casting any small creature, but we might be able to clear their board and gain a bunch of life while we're at it here. Untap land, never looked so good. Baffling End. I do like that, but we can do better. Oh, what am I talking about? We can just transform the Search. Yeah, let's just do that. I probably should have kept the Baffling End in that case. I should have considered that. Apologies, everyone. That would have been nice. For the follow-up, if they cast a creature this turn, then they can also play the Oathsworn Vampire. It would have been nice to Baffling End him, but I think we'll be fine. We still have 2 Settles in hand, with a Torrential Gearhulk in hand as well. Pitiless Plunderer. Okay, interesting. Another creature you control dies and makes treasure. Alright, now we got the Gearhulk, which they don't know about, I don't think. Did we side out the Sarcophagus? No. That would be a pretty sweet draw. Our whole graveyard is nothing but cyclers almost. Alright, so they could duress whatever they want, and they know about the Gearhulk, but they just can't really attack us because we'll get to flash into 5/6. If they attack with both, they're walking into a Settle the Wreckage, or Gearhulk. Just blocking 1. Henny to drain, that's fine. No cards in hand, so now if we wipe them away and we can get rid of the Bantu, that could be good. What is this for? Oh, just sack, create treasure, and drain. I see. It's coming together now. Oh. Oh, is that an infinite combo? Huh. Suddenly it makes sense. Alright, so I didn't even realize that. They need a sack outlet, a plunderer, a vampire, and a Bantu. So every time they sack this guy, they get treasure, which they then use to recast him and drain us endlessly. So we can only draw like a card or 2 here. Oh man, I can look for a 2-mana spell, but there's nothing here really that can answer this guy. So I have to like cycle Illumination into a cast out. Oh wow. That's gonna do it. Yeah, that's we didn't even realize our opponent had a combo here, but it seems like they do. And yeah, if they demonstrate it one more time, I can't even do anything here, so I'll just go ahead and concede for them. That is kind of cool. Huh. So Authority of the Consuls gets around that, actually. That could be worth bringing in for that reason alone. Forsake the Worldly does take out Bantu and the other thing, so I think I can bring that in too. Sorcerous Spyglass naming Yahenni also shuts it down, so I think I have to keep in a number of answers to that. And then I can probably take out like a Fumigate and another Haven maybe. I should just take out all the Fumigates. We're kind of just going all in on stopping that combo and then closing out the game once our opponent's hand is empty. So it's a 4-card combo. I believe there's, no way around that. They need a way to drain when they cast the creature. They need a way to generate infinite mana off of it dying repeatedly. Yeah, that's interesting. Very crafty little combo of our opponents there. Very clever. We will play first. And we have the Spyglass. If they don't duress it, I'll go ahead and keep this. I think I just named Yahenni right away. It's nice being able to kill it in combat that way, although without the Fumigates, it's not really necessary to worry about it being indestructible. That Oathsworn guy, that's not an activated ability, so it doesn't actually do anything. Yeah, I think I still named Yahenni. I'm pretty sure they have no way of getting rid of the Spyglass, so that shuts off that combo, and then we just have to worry about surviving to casting Gearhulks and things like that. The deck seems pretty weak otherwise, against us at least. No turn 1 duress? Turn 1 duress, alright. So they're going to take our Spyglass. I guess now we have to save cast outs for the Vampire. I think they have to take the Spyglass. Or maybe Settle the Wreckage, who knows. We left all 4 of those in, I believe, yeah. Alright, so they snatched our Spyglass away. Another cast out. There he is. I don't really want to cycle this farmland because we kind of need it. I'm just going to cycle the Censor. Okay, found the land. Drakehaven, actually, that's decent. I don't think they can kill us out of nowhere here, like instant speed or anything. And it's nice for the future when they try to make us discard. We can produce the Drake at instant speed. So we get a little bit of compensation for it. And yeah, they need Yahenni, they need those Plunderers, and they need Bantu, none of which they have. I'd like to find another untapped land so I can use this cycle land to find, or to make a Drake. But we'll see. Authority. Oh, sure. I think we'll just play that. Shuts down their hasty dudes, and I might cycle a cast out here because I no longer really fear the combo. Every time that they cast to drain us, they can gain infinite life off of it, but every time this guy enters, he heals us as well. So I'm not particularly concerned. I do want to deal with this treasure map, though. And maybe I should have played the farmland, but I just really want to hang on to every cycler I can. Do have to kill our opponent somehow. Authority is also decent against Yahenni and any other hasty black creatures. I can't think of many. Hopefully they're not playing things like Gonti. That could be a real nuisance. But they almost certainly are. Okay, there's Yahenni, alright. So they're halfway there. They still need the Plunderer and the other. I guess infinite life does actually perhaps warrant a concession. I don't have like a approach of the second sun to win or anything. Alright, let's just make a Drake. Looking for land still, and draw spells and things like that. Okay. I think I might want to cast out on the treasure map here. Actually, no. I might just cycle the farmland. They can have their draw 3, perhaps. Although I could... I think I will get rid of it, actually. They only have 3, soon to be 4. They did put a card on top, actually, so maybe that's worth considering. I will wait. And this way I get to threaten them with a Settle the Wreckage as well. I could use the treasure map now to transform it, but they already know the card on top, and they want it. And they decide to wait. So if they tap out here, I could probably go for it on my turn, or end of their turn after casting them out. They're attacking with both. Sure, I'll settle that. They get to draw a bunch of cards, but that's okay. Oh, he didn't even... Oh, I should have thought about that too. Okay, so our opponent might have missed it, but they definitely should have probably sacked the Oathsworn to Yahenni. Ooh, Liliana. But they can only really make some things slowly but surely. That's okay. Attack you, Liliana. I could just cast her out now. Could also cast out the treasure map. This is kind of tough, actually. They only got 2 cards left. This is likely the decision tree that will probably determine how this game goes. They have an active Liliana, and they're soon to have a treasure map. We only have 2 cyclers. Definitely like more. I'm going to save this Baffling End for more Oathsworn Vampires. Certainly not using that. I can play this land, getting closer to Gearhulking, but I don't even really have anything worth using the Gearhulk on yet. Dealing with the treasure map would be nice for depriving them of 3 cards. And if I leave Liliana behind, she just makes tokens, which are a nuisance. She can return Yahenni to the battlefield. I'm going to get rid of Liliana. They'll get to draw some cards, but I think we'll have the advantage before that is really a concern. I'm just going to hang on to the farmland to cycle. Okay. Pitiless Plunderer. Alright, so a bunch of dinky little creatures. Actually going to cycle the Censor first, just to see what we find. It's like a search for Azcanta. Okay, cast out's okay. Still just going to wait and keep producing blockers, though. Yep. They get to draw their cards. Must be nice. Another treasure map, oh my. It takes a while before it does anything. So they can really only attack with the zombie and the plunderer at best. I'm just going to take the 2 though. I can actually kill them relatively quickly with all these cyclers. More plundering. Oh, that is actually really good with the, that's another reason not to kill it, because they get treasure, which turns into cards. This isn't even legendary, so they could have multiple engines going every turn. That's kind of cool. But I think I might be able to kill them before it's an issue. Sunscourge is a decent draw. probably just going to play Sunscourge Champion here. It does dissuade them from attacking somewhat. Gains me a little bit of life as well. And if I absolutely had to, I guess I could eternalize it at some point if they kill it. I expect it's just a roadblock though. I don't really want to block and give them treasure, but they might not know I care about that. So we'll see what happens here. But this is a pretty interesting little deck that our opponent has. I do like having the authority though to dissuade them from just popping off like a Bantu, a Yaheni, and a Oathsworn, whatever he's called, Oathsworn Vampire. Opponent has quite a bit of mana. Yeah, Sunscourge, if they attack with everything, I'll just block the Plunderers. I don't actually want to kill anything here. They can chip away for 2 if they want to. Okay. We do have the win shortly. They got 3 life, and we get to produce another in just a moment. Another Drake. If they had 2 Bantu's Monuments, they could still do the infinite drain combo, which is kind of cool. But with only 4 cards, I don't think they have enough for that even. Oh, they do. They have exactly enough, but yeah, with Arch of Azcanta, they cannot. Okay, so I think we are going to win this game next turn, unless they have some kind of Bantu's Last Reckoning or something here. Freebooter. Sure, I'll get my Drake. Guess I want to scrap together a bunch of blockers or something. Yes, we'll use that. And we'll get a Drake. So now they have to block actually all 4 of them, which I don't think they can do. Oh, actually with these treasure tokens they technically still have 8 mana, so if they had, yeah, Bantu's Monument times 2 with a Yaheni and that Oathsworn, they'd sacked him earlier, then they might actually have had the win there. So, very cool deck. Mono black treasure with an infinite drain combo. But we are 4-0, so the deck is definitely performing better than I expected it to. Let's see if we can clinch the almighty 5-0 undefeated with our blue-white cycling deck. Stay tuned, everybody. Thanks for watching. Alrighty, here we are in match 5, undefeated so far. Playing against an unknown deck. We've actually had quite the taste of the metagame so far. Played against a mono-black sort of drain-based control deck, and Merfolk, as well as a blue-white control deck, and dinosaurs. Mulliganing to 6, our opponent. So we have, I feel like we've seen this very exact same kind of hand before, with a Drakehaven, a bunch of Cyclers to pay off, but only a single Plains. We're going to have to mulligan that one, I think. Not that adventurous. That ambitious here. So, let's hope to draw a Drakehaven or like a Search for Azcanta. I think I might lead off with a farmland, just so that we can have access to Censor on turn 2. If we don't find another land, the Glacial Fortress will come into play untapped then. And if our opponent does nothing worth censoring, then we can Renewed Faith cycle. Try and get something relevant. See what we scry into. Renewed Faith. Our opponent put a card on top. So if they're very aggressive, Renewed Faith would be great. If they're not so great. I think we can do better. Just maximize the chance of that turn 2 Search for Azcanta or turn 3 Drakehaven. Opponent is deliberating on their upkeep. Guess we'll see what all the fuss is about in a moment. You could just see an opening, like a basic land or something. That's usually pretty telling right now. So, Spire Bluff Canal could be like a Grixis mid-range or control deck. Could be an energy deck. Some kind of weird Artificer, Whirler Virtuoso thing. Guess we'll see here. Strategic planning. Alright. Could also be Godpharaoh's Gift. So that will be interesting. We'll have played 5 very unique and distinct decks. Differing strategies. I think we are fine having not kept the thing on top, the Renewed Faith. So strategic planning, discarding a Cathartic Reunion and a Combat Celebrant. If has not exerted this turn, you can exert it as it attacks. When you do, untap all others, and there's an additional combat phase. It's kind of cool. I don't know how viable that will be, but we'll see. Pretty sweet with Godpharaoh's Gift. I'm guessing it reverts back to the beginning of combat, so you get another creature out. And if you have like all 4 of these, you can just chain Godpharaoh's Gift, reanimating them into the next, exerting them, and taking another turn, essentially. So it's kind of cool. Definitely prioritize removing Godpharaoh's Gift from the board. And we don't really have much graveyard hate, unfortunately. No Scavenger Grounds, or even like a Crook of Condemnation. So we'll see what happens here. Okay, just finding lands. This would be a good time for a Drakehaven. Or another basic, sure. Alright, still just going to hang on to Censor. I could have dug for a search for Azcanta or something, but I don't think that's really necessary. Champion of Wits, I would probably like to cast that out. Is this just blue-red, or is there white? I would expect... Okay, there is white. So Godpharaoh's Gift is the plan. I can't refurbish next turn. That's kind of nice. So let's dig for some Baffling End. Actually, that's perfect. I can use it against that guy. I'm going to hang on to the Censor and the cast out for that reason. We can Baffling End this champion, and then still have a Censor if we absolutely need to hit something, but without double white, they can't even refurbish the Godpharaoh's Gift, so it's not that bad. They're missing their white sources. Well, that will do in a pinch. One time only. And just passing, okay. Something of relevance would be nice. Or just a million lands. It looks like a million lands. Okay. So we at least are not defenseless. We have cast out. I'm probably going to have to cycle the Censor, sadly. And of course, we're probably then going to find the Drakehaven. Doesn't really do much. But preventing the Godpharaoh's Gift from resolving is of the utmost importance. Interesting, they just tapped the Ether Hub and then played a plane, so I'm wondering if they don't even have a refurbish in hand. They discarded a Protean Raider. If it raids, you may have it enter as a copy of any other creature. It's kind of cool, but not much else going on. Alright, just give me like a Hieroglyphic Illumination or something, anything. Our hand is pretty garbage right now. More land. Alright. So, I think we've only drawn like maybe the Fumigate, the Baffling End. That might have been it, actually. After keeping a 6-card hand, so yeah, we haven't had the most luck drawing actual spells. The Baffling End was a welcome sight, though. It enabled me to save my cast out, so now if they have the refurbish, which it looks like they... maybe? Okay. Perhaps not. Just gonna go for the Angel, and I would guess they're gonna create a bunch of dudes. Yep. And a Minister. So I really want to Fumigate here, but that means I'm exposed to them reanimating, either refurbishing the Godpharaoh's Gift, or just casting the Godpharaoh's Gift. They have plenty of mana here. But, Let's see. 2 more turns. Can I take 2, 4, 6, 8? I think I have to wait for that. So they basically just lose if they get the Godpharaoh's Gift down. I can remove it a turn later, but then they've got something. Probably the other Angel of Invention. And I might be able to deal with that guy. He's going to enter as an angel, so everything gets even bigger. But at least now I can maybe top deck into something relevant, like a, what are those called? Countervailing Winds or something. They're actually playing around the Settle the Wreckage. That works out in our favor. That would be a nice draw, sort of. Fumigate. Alright, now I'm not too concerned. I'm going to go ahead and use this Fumigate. Our shields are down for a turn, but we gained a bunch of life back. And now, if they want to do some tricks, next turn I'll have the mana to actually cast out the Godpharaoh's Gift and Fumigate again. Hopefully that is good enough to win the game. If we can just find some spells. Cathartic, discarding another Vizier. Draw 3 cards. Okay, yeah. Mountain and Vizier. Another Minister. That's not that bad. Okay, we might actually have to contend with Godpharaoh's Gift this turn, either. Strategic planning. Alright. So they have 2 Viziers in the grave, and some unknown 2 cards in hand. Discarding another Celebrant. A land. Those Godpharaoh's Gifts at 7, yeah. So they didn't have to keep that in order to cast the next turn. Well, we're still at a healthy 20. We've drawn quite a few lands, and finding Search for Azcanta was very good there. Now we actually have some kind of plan. I could cycle the cast out if I absolutely want to transform it next turn, but I probably don't want to do that. This is the hard cast Godpharaoh? Yep. So maybe they're digging for the land to play around Censor. They get their Godpharaoh's Gift, but before it reanimates, very important to put the stop on the main phase. If you wait until the beginning of combat, it is too late. They get their whatever they're digging for. So that was fortunate that we had the cast out still. Put Plains in the grave, yes I will. Renewed Faith. Alright. Opponent has 2 cards in hand now. It's our 2 cards, but we will soon have a Search for Azcanta. Another Godpharaoh's Gift. It's really not the worst if they do have it. We can dig for another cast out or something. Oh, they want to mill again first, see what they find, perhaps. Oh, now they probably might just want to bring back the Champion of Wits. Play around a counter spell, but we'll see. That was unfortunate they found it. Okay. Nothing we can do about it. So they're back up to 6. They discard down to 2. But yeah, we cannot allow them to get a Godpharaoh's Gift down with all these combat celebrants in the grave. They'll get to repeatedly jam in. Can I just find like Drakehaven or Countervailing Winds? Okay, I'll take that. I'm not going to cycle it. I was hoping to find a Settle the Wreckage as well. I will transform this. Another Search. So I can use this for 3. And I can still cast Countervailing Winds and dig for like a Settle the Wreckage. So I'm not going to play this Search just yet. I'll take my 5 here, but I'll get to counter whatever they do and draw a card to replace it. And that's how we steadily begin to pull forward. Any little creatures that they play, I guess actually if they recast, if they Vizier to get another Champion of Wits, that's an issue. But we'll see what happens. Does that work? Yes, because the text is all written on the Champion. Or they just cast one from their hand. I could actually Countervailing Winds that. Okay, this is actually interesting. If I find a cast out, which I don't. Take a Settle the Wreckage. I might be able to just delay our opponent from ever actually killing us through combat. So this is unfortunate. If I found a cast out, I could have just blasted the Champion of Wits right now, and they would only be able to copy their Minister of Inquiries. But as it is, they get a big pile of cards right now. Discarding a bunch of lands. They're up to like 6 cards. They know about the Settle the Wreckage. That's okay though. They can draw as many cards as they want. I don't think it's going to matter unless they have Godpharaoh's Gift out to bring back these cathartic or these combat celebrants. Refurbishing that. Yeah, I'm going to counter that. Okay. Attacking for 5, that's acceptable. I think I Fumigate here. And I can activate the Azcanta, but not use the Settle, so we'll see what we find exactly. We have dealt with 2 Champion of Wits so far. Man. Well, this is kind of critical here. So if they get this, they have 2 Celebrants in there, so they can bring back a Celebrant and immediately attack and exert it, bring back another Celebrant after hitting us for 4 the first time, and then repeat 1 more time. So that's 4 and then 8, so a total of 12 damage, and then they'll like get to bring out the Angel of Invention, and we'll get to Settle the Wreckage then. Alternatively, I could use the Azcanta to dig for another Countervailing Winds. I think I might just have to use the Settle the Wreckage. And then I have to dig for a cast out or something. Yikes, this is really interesting actually. Oh, actually no, because they bring back the Viziers and those copy the combat celebrant. So I pretty much have to find a counterspell here or I'm dead. I guess I could settle some. They would attack with some, but not all, maybe. I don't know. 1 more mana would have been very nice to have, though. Oh, we find the cast out, but... yeah. I guess I can cycle it for nothing, really. Yep, 1 mana short. That's a shame. I'd be able to nuke the cast out here and probably win the game from there. But as it is, I can't even cast Settle the Wreckage. So, that was unlucky. If we had found the Countervailing Winds, we could have just countered it and gone on our way. Still with Settle in hand. They couldn't really do much with their just 4 mana, no creatures here. But yeah, they're just going to go Celebrant into Vizier, and that will be death. That's a pretty cool tech, though. They can't exert with the previous Celebrant. It's oh. They just skipped. Doesn't it get haste? Gains haste till end of turn. That's interesting. Okay. Well, I guess they don't have any more Celebrants, so if I find another Fumigate, number 2. Huh. Well, my opponent has spared us this day. Let me find the Countervailing Winds now. Not very useful. I think I just have to Settle the Wreckage at the right time. If they attack with both of them here, I get to remove them forever, so they have to, like, immediately bring back... Okay, we'll see what they do. I'm not going to bother counter... Oh, I have a cast out. What am I doing? Okay, apologies. I'll, whew, that was close. I had totally forgotten about the cast out that we searched for last turn. So I get to actually remove the Godpharaoh's Gift and counter another one if it comes. And then that should be good, I hope. I will have to Settle the Wreckage on these guys, though. Oh, he was exerted, so he's still tapped, too. Okay. Interesting. He'll get to untap this guy by attacking, but then I get to, if they do that, I get to settle them both away. Okay. Alright, I feel much better about this now. He exerts, he untaps. I'll take my 4. It's still going to be kind of close, I think. They get to go to combat again. But without the God Pharaoh's gift, it's really not that big of a concern. Yeah, sure. So yeah, I think our opponent definitely miscalculated or clicked too quickly or something. They do get to hit us down to 3 now, but that's not going to be enough. So, we probably should be dead. And yet we are not. We live to find another Fumigate or something. And these are both exerted now, so they champion a wits. Okay. Could counter that. Let's see what we find. I think we're fine. They can't give haste to one of these Viziers unless they have another God Pharaoh's gift, so I just saved my counterspell for that, I think. And look for another Fumigate. And that should be like the last of these Celebrants. Hopefully I don't cast another one here. Cathartic and Advantage away. What is this? Charter Course? Another Celebrant. Alright, so I'm going to counter the Celebrant. So the only way that they can cheat more combat and kill us is with another God Pharaoh's gift. One is in the grave. No, both of them are exiled. So we still have to draw something okay, but we have Settle the Wreckage, so we're probably not. Oh, well, that's fine too. So now we just wait. This is difficult to navigate, but I think because of our opponent's maybe misclick or miscalculation on how much mana we had, we should prevail. And they know about the Settle the Wreckage, so even if like they play an Angel to pump the champion so that it's lethal, we still survive. More champions, that's fine. Opponent only has 10 cards left in their deck. See, they discard a Vizier. Okay, so it's like just those 3. The whole deck operates around Vizier and Celebrant, and then Champion and Angel just for a little extra value. I don't think there's any difference between 1 and 3 life here, so I'll take the hit. And this time we find a Fumigate. I think we win. Vizier, copying whatever you want, that is probably fine. They're still digging for something. Alright, Fumigate, I think we're okay. Sarcophagus gets back some useful things, but not really what we need. I could just take the pull from tomorrow and draw a million cards. I do have double blue still. Also, I like a counterspell though. I get to draw like 6 cards. That's probably sufficient. Sad to see all those go. Those are the last of my counterspells, I think. But I think with the cast out and Settle the Wreckage, I don't really have to counter anything. There's Fumigate, so let's discard that. This is quite the game won, thanks to our opponent prolonging it for us. So win or lose, I feel like this is a satisfactory game. So we're going to wipe everything away, gain some life. I'm going to hold up 4 and 8. Yes, 8 mana, so I can cast out and settle if need be. 8 exactly. And I'll just discard a Search for Azcanta. So So our opponent has 7 cards left. If they flash back these champions, that kind of eats away at how much time they have left. They're going to try and bring back some more things. Like a Combat Celebrant. Let's cast that out. And they even get to dig for a Azcanta activation here. Looking for another cast out, or just getting me closer to all those Countervailing Winds that we just put on the bottom. Take the glyph. And now I can even play some chump blockers through the Drake Haven. Oops, didn't mean to skip that. Let's play Drake Haven, pass the turn. Alright, that should be the end. 3 Godpharaoh's Gifts under control. If they have the 4th, we have the 4th cast out for it. There it is. So if they go for the refurbish, that will be our plan. But we could also just prolong the game long enough, I think, that it wouldn't even matter anyway. We are going to get to hit the last Godpharaoh's Gift. We could just settle repeatedly as they deck themselves. But this is funnier. Alright. All the Godpharaoh's Gifts are gone. Opponent has 3 turns to kill us. Minister of Inquiries, can he do it? Let's just draw cards. Trying to find a Countervailing Winds. Yeah, why not Settle the Wreckage? And we will make a Drake. Oop, there's... Ugh. Oops. That's fine. That is fine. I don't want to bore anyone by actually going through the motions of attacking like some plebeian. We'll let our opponent deck themselves here. I will make a Drake, I suppose, to block the Minister, just because I can. But with 4 Settle the Wreckages and our opponent only having at most like 3 or 2 attack steps, I think that we will be okay. I might not even be able to get any basics with these Settle the Wreckages, so that's maximum value. We get to see their whole deck, essentially. It's just all about cloning with the Vizier and the Raiders multiple Celebrants. So that is kind of cool. Uh-oh. They've doubled their effective attack power here. Oh wow, could they actually try to deck us in time? That's kind of scary, actually. They can mill me. Yeah, actually, they can kill me that way. Okay. Well, I don't have any other ways of immediately removing them, do I? Oh wow, this just got a lot scarier. Mills you like 3 at a time. So let's see. This turn they mill me down to 13. I draw down to 12. And then next turn they're at 1 card. They can mill me for 6. From 12 down to 6. I draw down to 5. They draw their last card, and then yeah, okay. I'm actually gonna lose this if I needed like another Drake Haven. I need to make a lot of Drakes and fast. Oh dear. I hope that doesn't come back to bite me. I'm missing out on that Drake last turn. Okay, another Drake Haven. Ugh. Yeah, I think it's actually best. I don't really know for sure on the math, but I'm going to guess that making 2 Drakes for 1 card draw is valuable. I can't use my Azcanta. I think I have to go for the kill next turn, so I'm going to have to cycle, and then kill them with the Shefet Dunes. Them being at 18 is nice. I only need either 9 Drakes, excuse me, or more likely, what did I say, 18, just 6 Drakes, and then use Shefet Dunes. So that is the plan. They can't kill me yet. They can mill me 6, and then I have 1 more attack step. So with 2 Drakes, I can make 2, 4, 6 after drawing 3 cards. So yeah, I think we're still okay. I'll have like 1 card left in my library. That's kind of funny. Vizier, sure. Yeah, because we don't have any more Fumigates. That's funny. 1, 2, 3. Alright. we're effectively at like 4 cards. Because they're going to mill me 6, I'm going to draw 1. Very careful not to skip on making a Drake here. Countervailing Winds would be a nice draw, just so I know I can counter like a weird removal spell out of nowhere. Alright, so they can mill me 6. I'm at 3. I'm going to draw 1 down to 2. Yeah, I have like 1 card left. But this might just do it. My bottom 4 cards, actually, no. They're like the Sarcophagus and the 2 Countervailing Winds. Alright. Oof. We get done tapped, I think we're good. I think we're good. Can mill me 6, yeah. Alright, I got 2 counter spells. Let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sacrifice. Alright, I was not expecting this conclusion to this game, but I think we are fine. Oof. Okay. That was pretty nuts. And now what do we even do? Forsake the Worldly is good against Godbrow's Gift. Authority of the Consuls stops the shenanigans for a turn. Baffling End exiles them permanently. That's generally good. Negates are generally okay. Jace's Defeat actually doesn't hit that much. It's like the Protean Raider, the Viziers, the Ministers, the Champion of Wits, and then opposing counterspells. Is that good enough? I wonder. That was a pretty insane game. Let's try taking out some of these Renewed Faiths. And a Fumigator 2. Authority of the Consuls, Defeat, or Gearhulks. Gearhulks are Settle the Wreckages sometimes. Ixalan's Binding is good if I can catch a cast out, because I don't think they have much other enchantment removal. I just want to try and be aggressive. Let's try taking out a Drakehaven and actually keeping the pull from tomorrow. And let's see how this goes. Not really sure how to sideboard here. I don't have much graveyard interaction, really. As in, none whatsoever. Alright. This is a pretty phenomenal hand, actually. I'm going to keep it. We are within sight of maybe going 5-0 in our first league here. We'll get to maybe resolve a Countervailing Winds and back it up with Negate Censor. Okay, yeah. Turn 2, search for Azcanta. That is a good start. With millions of counterspells. By millions, I mean 4. Are they just digging for lands furiously? Milling, God-Pharaoh, and search. Okay. So now we just try to ride this to victory to guide our draws. I'm happy keeping an island. And, yeah, between Censor, Negate, double Countervailing Winds, we can let through like a Combat Celebrant or a Champion of Wits even and just Baffling End it. Do I want to try and mana screw them here? I think I do actually. Okay. Cycling or Censor is very, very good when your opponent's mana screwed. But I'm gonna cycle looking for like a Drakehaven or something good here and fill up my graveyard more quickly. Field of Ruin. We know they have Azcanta, but they've already milled 1. I don't really think I need it. Lands are generally okay when you have a pull from tomorrow, but not really sure if that's right or wrong. Minister's fine. Holding up a Negate now, maybe? No. more importantly, trying to resolve a Charter Course or Cathartic. Yeah. Padim, Council of Innovation. Artifacts have hexproof, so protects Godpharaoh Gift. And if you control an artifact with the highest mana, you draw a card. Okay. And Chaos Maw. Whew, that's good against me too. Well, I'm not going to allow them to draw cards unnecessarily, so we'll stop that. Alright. Cast out. I do like me a cast out, but I think we're just looking to hit lands here, keep ahead of our opponent, and then resolve a big pull from tomorrow, and transforming Search for Azcanta ought to be good enough. Champion of Wits, that's going to draw them cards, but I can then just Baffling End it. I can draw 3 this turn. How seriously do I want to just keep hamstringing their mana? Let's keep going. I think that they literally have just no lands to play. They want to deck themselves or me. Alright, what do we got? What do we got? Settle the Wreckage. I don't need that. I will transform. Glacial. Alright, so now if they want to play yet another... Oh, now he's going to mill me. Okay. 3 lands in a row. Okay. I might not actually have been able to find anything with that. Oh, whatever. I'm probably just going to pull from tomorrow for 5 here, if they give me the chance. Do they play Spell Pierce? I don't think so. So I'm just going to fire this off now before they find that second land. There we go. I can probably do without a Baffling End here. Probably could have discarded Fumigate, actually. That might have been better. They went back to milling. They're still milling me? Yeah, I guess so. So here, I could play the Drake Haven. I think I have to in order to win, so I'm going to do that. They just let it through. They still have no white mana either to refurbish. It's good to know. This is a very interesting game. Another champ. Sure. Probably going to Baffling End that guy. Their Minister. I could probably actually just Fumigate here. 2, 3, 4, 5. And I still get to Negate then. That sounds good to me. They're still trying to deck me. That's a worthy goal. Forsake the Worldly or big counterspell. Let's take the counterspell. I really want a Sarcophagus. That'd be nice. Right, I don't like being decked, even though they're about to run out. Let's just do that. And now we have a big counter spell, or we can negate something crazy, or we can just draw off of Azcanta. I'm not doing anything. Yes, please. I like this. Ixalan's Binding and another Drake. These are all great. Binding's not that impressive right now. I'll just take a second Drake Haven. Start mass producing drakes. Their only way to deal with them is really like this Chaos Maw, and probably maneuver around that somehow. Does your opponent have something tricky to do on upkeep? No. Alright, so let's just play this. 1, 2, 1, 2. So I can actually cycle the Countervailing Winds, get 2 drakes, and negate whatever they try and do here. So I think we might have this game. As much as I would love to Azcanta here, I think I would rather just make some drakes now and start actually pressuring our opponent. More cyclers would be welcome now. There we go. I actually want to hang on to this Countervailing Winds just in case our opponent's last 3 cards are something devastating, counter or something. There's 1 plains. 2, 3, 4, 5. They're 1 mana away from hardcasting Godpharaoh, and they're 1 white mana from refurbishing. Locust God. Flies. Whenever you draw, does stuff. Can draw, discard, blah blah blah. And yeah. So can't baffle him. I can look for a cast out like that, or I can just censor him. If I censor, I don't have a 1 mana cycler, unfortunately. That's probably still okay. Let's just censor him, I guess. Hit that. And then make a Drake, I guess. Yeah, why not? I'm not getting the full value. I know it's heresy, but I think it is correct. We're just looking. There we go. Hit more cyclers anyway. Just using our mana efficiently. Alright, and now here's the super secret tech. I actually discard the hand size. Let's search for Azcanta, and I can get 2 Drakes out of it. So what could our opponent even hope to do? Like, Chaos Maw is the only way they can survive. Godspell's Gift, obviously, into Chaos Maw. And well, that'll do it. So I was going to say that, yeah, as long as we just held up 5 mana to Countervailing Winds with Negate backup, I felt like we were locked to win there. So unfortunate our opponent got kind of mana screwed there, but it was, I think it was made up for by that intense Game 1. Which they generously gave to us. So that was a crazy match, but very fun, and a very fun league as well. So my final thoughts on the deck: it seems very strong in an unknown metagame. Generally, control decks don't fare all that well against a multitude of decks, which seems like there will be. There's tons of tribal decks, control decks, mid-range decks running around. So as long as you tailor your sideboard to dealing with those, I feel like the main deck is pretty much ironed out. You could change a few numbers around here or there, but yeah, sideboard cards to consider, like Baffling End if you're in aggressive matchups, Spell Pierces even, or Negates to deal with controlling decks, and tempo like blue-green Merfolk, or some kind of Artificer deck or something that's got cheap counters and cheap creatures. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. I hope that you enjoyed viewing and maybe learned something about the deck, maybe motivated to pick it up now. Seems very good though. So thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next one.